Hey guys, welcome in to Crystal Masters. My camera wasn't working, which is weird because I just used it not an hour ago for readings. Anyway, we're here, everything's live and good to go. I'm so excited for today's class. Today's class is the master class of gridding. I've only taught gridding officially, I think, 3 times in the 10 years that we've been doing this together. So great to see you, by the way. Is anybody new tonight? We have quite a few new Crystal Masters members, so I do want to welcome you in. It's always fun to see who's new and tell you that I hope you love your experience. I hope it's fun for you. I hope tonight is fun and educational, because that's what I aim for in my classes. I know some crystal healing classes that you can take online are more sort of academic, but I was a professor for a really long time, and I just don't want to do that. So I try to make my classes full of information and rigorous intellectually, but I try to make them a little bit fun and lighthearted and very practical as well. So look at that. Welcome to all of you who are new. Shauna's new, G Pardo's new, Mary Parker's new. Look at that. Well, welcome in. It's Peyton's first live. LJ's new to gridding. Love it. So welcome to those of you who are new, and if you're not new, I'm not new. Welcome to all of you who are very not new. It's fantastic to have you here. Yeah, we're very, very happy. You who have now been assimilated, that's right. So today is going to be, I think, the most comprehensive class I've taught on crystal healing. And I also have a surprise. I have a giveaway, a crazy giveaway, and I have a crazy enter to win just for you in Crystal Masters. And all the tools that I'm showing you today and working with are in your class tools section at sagegoddess.com. We're giving you 20% off that section today. Your code is ClassTools20. That code is good until midnight tomorrow. And if you do end up shopping at sagegoddess.com, I have a pretty crazy thing for you. I designed this wand. So this is my wand maker, but I sent him the crystals to custom make this wand for tonight's class as a giveaway. Or this is the enter to win. I'll show you the giveaway in just a second. So this is, if you shop, I'm going to get a list of your names. Anybody who shops in Crystal Masters between now and midnight tomorrow. And one of you is going to win this wand. Let me show it to you. This is rose quartz on the top. Beautiful, translucent. It's girasol. And then I had him do the citrine. Hold on, I have a fingerprint on it. Then I had him do citrine and yellow sapphire there for prosperity and empowerment. Then I had him do yellow apatite. The big natural crystal right there is yellow apatite with opal for transformation in your financial state. Then more Congo citrine, cut faceted, and yellow sapphire, and then a rose quartz sphere at the bottom. This is your wand to manifest love and wealth. And these are all stones from my personal collection. Isn't that cool? It's the first time he's done a custom wand at my request for something like this. So you don't have to shop. If you do, this is an enter to win. One of you is going to win that. And then tonight's giveaway, this is just a giveaway. There's no purchase necessary. So if you shop, you can enter to win the wand. If you don't shop, you can enter to win this. This is the only wandlet he's ever done, and you can work with these to activate grids. Let me show it to you on the other camera. This is so beautiful. This is a double terminated, do you see that? Isn't that a beauty? Double terminated wand with blue tourmaline in the middle. And that's for intuition and authenticity. Isn't that beautiful? So you can use this to activate grids and deactivate grids and send and receive energy. So this is a giveaway. Isn't that cool? I don't know about code 20 Sparkle. I don't think we have a code 20 Sparkle right now. If we do, it's a surprise to me. I only know Class Tools 20. So anyway, I'm going to work with these tools tonight, and then this is a giveaway. So I will do this giveaway in our Facebook group. I'm going to let it run until Wednesday, because I don't want anybody to miss out, but I did want you to see the tools that I'm giving away. This is worth $399, and the wand is worth almost $1,000 because there's yellow sapphires and Congo citrines in there and magic. So it's quite a little bounty tonight if you're here. Yeah, so your code is ClassTools20. You don't have to feel compelled to shop. If you don't want to shop, if you have everything you need, don't. That's why I'm doing a giveaway too. A lot of you are going to want to grab some tools, and if you want to, I think that's great. But if you have everything you need, I don't want you to feel left out, and so that's why I'm doing the giveaway too. And I think the giveaway is magnificent. So stay tuned. I'll be working with those tools so that you can see them in action. I'm going to leave them on my altar. Isn't that fun? Yay! You're very advanced if you have all your tools. I think that's really cool. And one of the things I will always tell you, because I really believe it, is using your own tools and using what your intuition guides you to use is the best possible way to approach your practice. So I want you to follow your intuition. I'm going to give you my best guidance tonight about how, where, when. Everything I'm teaching you tonight, I've been building and activating and deactivating and moving and shifting and cleaning and charging grids for 30 years. I learned how to grid with crystals when I was just turning 18 in a class that I was taking. And it was a woman who was really ahead of her time who taught the class. And she wasn't super into crystals, but she believed in gridding, and she was a really serious practitioner. So everything that I know really dates back to her and that initial class that I took, and then I've been building and gathering my wisdom as we've gone. So what I'm going to tell you is I'm going to teach you everything I know tonight. Please feel free to ask questions as we go. I probably at certain points when we're activating and deactivating won't be able to answer your questions directly. There will be plenty of time at the end tonight for questions. And you can ask me anything. I'm an open book. I mean, if I don't know the answer, we'll figure it out together. But I'm really excited. I'm really excited to share with you. No, the enter to win is for anything you buy today or tomorrow at sagegoddess.com. It doesn't have to just be from the class tools section, but only the class tools section is 20% off. Everything else is 19% off, and your code is MEGA19 if you're buying stuff that isn't in the class tools section. All right, are you ready? I'm ready. I hope you're ready. I'm super excited for tonight. So I'm going to switch cameras to my altar so that you can get a little sneaker peeker here. I've got my Diet 7 on. Okay, so this is the grid that we are working with tonight. This is everything here that you need. Your grid came with 5 quartz points. I'm really going to be focusing on 4, and I will explain why that is, and I'm going to leave it up to you how you want to do yours. This is a pentagonal grid, right? Meaning it's built on the shape of a pentagon. So it does become kind of tricky to place your quartz points at the 4 corners, but that's always what I'm going to guide you to do. So find where the top of your grid is, wherever you feel like the top is. Does that feel good as my top? For some reason I'm wanting to turn it this way. And then you'll want to place your 4 quartz points at the 4 directions. And we'll go through and we'll place everything together. We'll walk through the stones together so that you know everything that that is here and you can see it all together. Remember the stones that it came with. You got your hessonite garnet up here, or wherever you decide to put it. You've got your emerald, your yellow apatite, your green aventurine, and your Congo citrine. And then we also gave you a little baggie of some peridot chipstones if you want to use those. You don't have to. But those are the tools that we're working with tonight. I'm going to teach you how to activate your grid with your finger. I'm also going to teach you how to activate your grid with a wand, because you will be somewhere at some point in your healing journey where you don't have a wand. And you're going to build a grid out in the middle of the desert, or you're going to do something somewhere and you're not going to have a wand, and you won't be wearing your necklace, you know what I mean? And you're going to be like, what did she teach me to do again? So I do want to teach you how to do things tonight with your hands, because you can always, right? You can always work with your hands too. So I just wanted to give you a lay of the land with your tools. We have not rung the bell yet, but let me know if you have any questions about the tools that we're using. And with that, session 2 of Soul Shift for this month, for May, has begun. And we're doing this tonight, by the way, because May is the money month, right? If you haven't been following me for very long, or maybe you missed some of the things that I do on 5/5, I always do a wealth and abundance meditation for you. I did it this year. I think we've done it like for the past 7 or 8 years pretty consistently, because it's one of my favorite times of the year. So the number 5 is the number of money and wealth. And so it's important to create some kind of grid for prosperity for yourself this month. I do need to, Alexis, will you ping Dave? I forgot to bring my computer up because I took pictures of some of my grids around the house. Not all of them, but the main ones that I thought you'd be interested in. Can you let him know I left my computer downstairs and I just need him to bring my computer up to me? Because I'm going to open my computer. I downloaded the pictures to just show you. I wanted to show you my Lakshmi grid outside. I wanted to show you my altar for Kuan Yin. It's also in my garden. I wanted to show you my Synergy grids. I have a couple of grids to show you. This is the Synergy 12 grid. A lot of times I glue my stones to the grid, and that's because I like to travel with them. And I don't, and I also have a cat. So, cats like to come along and go ding, 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 and make all the crystals go away. So when I have a really important grid, to me, you will see me take a little E6000 and glue those cuties down. There are people who will tell you never to do this, just so you know, because they believe that glue, there's a whole thing, you know what I mean? Oh, don't put glue on stones because glue means you can't conduct the energy. That has not been my experience at all. And I put the smallest little bead of glue on my stone to be able to hold it. But I am a fan of gluing crystals to grids. Now, this is a commitment, right? If you have commitment issues, this might really freak you out. You might be like, what if I want to use that grid for something else? So I don't have commitment issues. So I go, ready, go, and I stick it. But you don't have to glue if you don't want to. And if you don't like glue, it's okay. Different strokes for different folks. Again, everything you're going to learn tonight is the world according to Athena and my best practices. But if you don't want to glue things, I'm not telling you have to glue a grid. Your cats don't respect grids either. Yeah, and you can. Like Angel uses putty, the museum putty, which is cool. I like that too. A lot of times when my crystals are clear, I don't want to see, I want it to look eye clean, which is why I use glue. But if you don't mind seeing a little nubbin on the back of your crystals, and you're not working with a lot of clearer crystals, then I think you can definitely use museum putty. Yeah. You learned to glue everything too. I love that. And I don't have commitment issues with crystals. I have commitment issues in romantic relationships. I definitely do, but not with crystals. I will glue shit down all day long. And now I have a computer so I can show you magic things when the time comes. A little nubbin. I have weird names for things in case you haven't noticed. Bebops, nubbins, very official names for things. Okay, if you didn't get something, like you didn't get the peridot stones or whatever, Alexis is watching the feed. She'll take care of you and she'll make sure that you get what you need. Now, we have a lot to cover tonight, so I'm going to dive right in. Like I said, feel free to stop and ask questions as we go. I'm here for you. This is your class, so I want to make sure that my hope is that literally nobody leaves with a question, that I have time to answer them all. It doesn't mean I'll have the perfect answer for all your questions, but it is certainly my intention to answer them all while we're here. Okay, you ready? Now, so I'm going to start by teaching, then we're going to set up our grid, activate it, and then I'm going to lead you through a guided meditation, just a little brief one, as long as we have time and as long as you're interested, because I'm going to teach you about not just the structure of a grid, but the energetics of a grid. And I think once I do this, and I've never taught this before, I've talked about it a little bit, but I've never really taught it. I think once you understand what your grid looks like outside of 3D, okay, if there was a way I could magically, remove the veil and you could see this room and that grid and the universe outside of a human 3D mindset, it would really change how you think about your crystals, how you work with your crystals, and it would lead to you having fewer questions. if you could see the inner workings, the machinations. And I know you can't. The only reason I can tell you about it is that I work a lot with plant medicine, so I'm very fortunate. I have lots of opportunities to see the other side and to see how things work. And I work with visual hallucinogenics, not this year because of the pandemic, but I work with ayahuasca, for example, which is very helpful in terms of showing you what's actually going on energetically. So a lot of you don't work with plants, can't work with plants, don't want to work with plants. So what I'm going to try to do is teach you what you would see if you had those experiences. And then those of you who've had your own plant medicine experiences, maybe you can chime in too and say, oh, I haven't seen that, but I've seen this other thing, or you can share with us too, because we love to learn from each other. So Ezra, I'm going to get to all those questions tonight. So I'm going to dive right in. I'm going to teach you. So here's the structure for tonight. Ready? How to grid. Here's what we're going to cover. What stones go into a grid? What is a grid? How do you activate? How do you deactivate? How do you tend a grid, charge a grid, clear a grid, clean a grid? When to grid. I'm going to teach you the moon phases. I'm going to teach you power days. What days of the week, what moon phases are best to grid, both for setting up and for taking down. I'm going to teach you how long to leave up grids depending on the intention, the energy, and frankly what you want to do, right? This is going to have to work for you. If you don't want to leave grids up, I understand that. My main prosperity grid has been intact 15 years, 18, maybe 18 years. Yeah, I think 2003 is when I set up my main prosperity grid. That's 18 years. Crazy, right? I've added to it, but I've never taken anything away from it. So that's my oldest grid. It's like my oldest child. And then I have, this is my youngest baby. This is the most recent grid I put together. And I just glued all this down last week because I had this. This is these are the chakra gemstone duos at sagegoddess.com, and I kept this up to show people like solar plexus, sacral, right? And then I kept knocking them over, and Smudge was knocking them over. So this one I just glued last week. Yeah, so we'll talk about that. Then I'm going to teach you why to grid. Why would you set up a grid? It's about your intention, there's seasonality, and then we set up grids for healing and holding space for other people. And then I'm going to teach you where to grid. We're going to talk about the Bagua map in Feng Shui. And we're going to talk about indoor versus outdoor grids, and we're going to talk about stones that are safe to leave outside if you choose to do what I've done and set up something outside for yourself. Do you have any questions that don't fit into anything I just said? How, when, why, or where? Do you have questions other than that? The only question I'm not prepared to teach you is who, because I think the answer to that is probably pretty obvious. It's you who's going to be gridding. I don't think there's an age that's like right to grid, wrong to grid. You can use a hot glue gun. You can do all those things. But when you have a really good grid, you get attached to it. Like my original prosperity grid, it's still really good. It's got some stones on it that I can't even get anymore. So part of me is like, I just don't want to take it down because I think it's serving its purpose, right? Yeah, we're going to talk about points in or out. Thank you for that. It's a really great reminder too, Lorianne. It's on my list, actually. It literally says out to send, in to receive in my notes. That's a great question. Who could also include who can you grid for? You should only grid for you. Unless it's a healing grid or you're holding space for someone else and they've asked you to do that. So the code of conduct for me ethically as a healer and a practitioner is I only do things for people when they ask. So if someone says, I need healing, I need whatever, I'm worried about this, could you please set up a grid for me? That is absolutely okay. But then you'd want to ask them, okay, so how long would you like me to leave the grid up? Maybe they are having a health challenge and they get better. Maybe they don't want you to leave the healing grid up anymore. So I think a lot of those things get bound up in the in those questions of who are you doing it for and what is your intention around that. Can you do a grid wrong? I don't think you can. I don't think you can do a grid wrong. I did not take a picture of my main prosperity grid, mostly just because I forgot to do that. And it's too heavy to bring up here for you. It's actually on a really big tray, like the daily tray that I do my videos on. It's on a tray that size, and it's on a glass tray. Just because when I set it up 18 years ago, that's what I had. If I was doing it today, I would probably put it on a wood base, just because I have found that when you set up grids on organic materials equals not glass. I think energetically that's a little bit better. But back then, it's what I had. It looks really pretty. It's not my ideal material for it, but I've been happy with it for a really long time, so I don't do anything about it. For your animals, you can grid. I think with your animals, don't you feel like you have, it's almost like gridding for your kids, right? Like I have gridded for my kids for different things, and have always felt as their mom. Now, once they're adults, I will absolutely feel the need to ask for their permission. But as their mother, as their guardian, and somebody who's responsible for them, I feel like I have more latitude and leeway there to work on their behalf. Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, my preferred base is a stone base, Colin. But, I mean, I don't have a lot of good big stone things. You know what I mean? I have very few large stone pieces. I have a couple at Sage Goddess, but they're all packed up. Because my whole office is still packed. I don't even have a floor yet at Sage Goddess, which is why I'm still teaching you from home. The pandemic shut down all the manufacturing of the floor for my office. It shut down the manufacturing of stone, shut down manufacturing of all kinds of things. So my office is still literally, there's nothing in my office except for paint on the wall. So anyway, long story short, I have one stone table, but it's at the office and I don't have access to it. Can you put a grid on the ceiling? Why not? I mean, I like the idea. I like to think outside the box, so sure. You can totally use double terminated quartz points. Oh yeah. Okay, so I'm going to stop here just to kind of focus on the teaching for a minute, but what I'm going to tell you is keep those questions. I will come back at the end of tonight. I'm going to leave hopefully 10 minutes or so, 10, 15 minutes, just to focus on your questions. So hold your questions. If I don't get to it right now, I will absolutely make sure to do like a lightning round at the end where I get to all those questions, because they're really, really good questions. Yeah. Okay, you ready? I'm ready too. Yeah, grading on mirrors could be really interesting too. Copper would be really beautiful, because remember, copper conducts the energy. You have a copper plate or a copper tray, or brass is nice too. I find brass to be kind of a living metal. There's something very conductive about it, and beautiful about it. And I love how copper and brass over time develop that really cool patina. So that's something I love too. Yeah, and you can always use other stones other than quartz, so we're going to talk about that tonight too. So let's begin with how. Okay, and remember, Team SG is taking notes for you. All you have to do is sit back, relax, and enjoy. We're here to make this experience really fun and easy for you. So take your time, take a breath, and just enjoy the experience. And like I said, I'll leave extra time for questions at the end. So I'm going to focus here now more than the feed, just so you know. Okay, so stones for a grid. Here's one place where my teaching has evolved. If you go back to one of my most viewed videos on YouTube is a video about gridding that I did 5 or 6 years ago, and I still think it's a great video. I mean, it's still there, it's still relevant, but my own thinking has evolved. I've worked with different people, I've worked with different teachers, I've done a lot more gridding in the last 5 years, so I've kind of been having more practice. And so one of the ways in which my own thinking has evolved is about centerpieces for grids. I was so set on only using quartz generators for grids forever, really, up until the last couple of years. And I've really kind of widened the aperture on my thinking around this, because I do think that spheres are great. I do think that obelisks are great. I do think that pyramids are great for centerpieces of grids, okay? And you'll notice that on your grid today, you have a little pyramid. So I want to take a minute to tell you a little bit about centerpieces and some of the hallmark features, what kind of makes them similar, what makes them different. I did not pull out a sphere to show you, but you guys know what a sphere looks like. I have a sphere on the wand that I am giving away here so you can see what a sphere looks like, right? This is a sphere. And if you're new to stones, I know a lot of you know what a sphere looks like, but I don't like to make assumptions. That's a sphere, okay? So all of these can be centerpieces. A sphere can be the centerpiece of a grid, and by centerpiece I mean literally what's in the middle, okay? A baby Ben, that's right. Hey, Danielle. This is a generator over here. So what's the difference? Well, a generator on the bottom is 6-sided. An obelisk and a pyramid are 4-sided on the bottom. That's the primary difference between them. So a pyramid has 3 sides, 4 3-sided sides, and then it has a 4-sided base, like that. So it's actually what we call a hexahedron. Focus. Yeah, it's a hexahedron. Xe in Greek means 6, and a cube is 6-sided. If you think about it, it's got a top and a base and 4 sides. A pyramid does the same thing that a generator does the same thing that an obelisk does. It gathers energy at the base, so there, and it directs the energy to the top. It creates a vortex of energy. And so that energy is sent skyward. It also channels energy from above to below. That's distracting. So it sends the energy up. It also collects the energy down. So it is bi-directional in that way. It has energy coming up, whether you think about that as energy from the earth or whether you think about that as energy from the grid itself. It's gathering that energy from the base and directing it to the point. And then that point is receiving energy that's skyward, right? Whether you think of that as source energy or energy from other dimensions coming into your grid. So it creates this, the reason I call it a vortex is there's literally energy coming from below, energy coming from above, and they unite in the middle. Now the reason a sphere is okay too, spheres are great because they really do infuse your entire space with an even vibration, okay? So a sphere is great too. Now a sphere, in order to make it a centerpiece for a grid, you really need to put it on a little base, right? Otherwise it's just gonna roll around. But a lot of you have bases for your spheres. So if you had a little base, you literally could use that sphere as a centerpiece. Here's the difference in my experience. Spheres are more diluted, but they cover a greater area. Let me say that again. The energy of a sphere is not as focused as an obelisk, a generator, or a pyramid, because it's very much a linear, it's like a line of energy, if that makes sense. So it's much more focused, and it's much more linear. When you work with a sphere, it's more diluted energy, but it also expands out to include the entire space, right? The entire energy field. So some people like that better. Here's how I think of it, okay? Yeah, and Kaz, you can totally use a flame too. Flames are good too, and I'm glad you mentioned that because they still have a point. What I don't like to use in the middle, free-form pieces that are not terminated. Now again, if you feel differently, do you? Do you know what I mean? This is just my best thinking, my best training, my best insight. You want something that has a termination because it creates that line. The sphere and a freeform is going to do much the same thing, except a freeform is not even, right? A sphere is the full 360 degrees, so it's going to send that vibration evenly through the space. A freeform is it's free form, and it could be uneven, and so the energy flow is not going to be as clean and as clear. Does that make sense? So I prefer to have, for me personally, if you look at most of my grids, most of them have a quartz piece of some kind, quartz-based mineral. Now this is the other thing that's really important. I was kind of a purist for a long time too, and I didn't want to use anything other than quartz, quartz, quartz. Okay, but my thinking on this has evolved too. I have had huge success with quartz-based minerals that are not pure quartz. What do I mean by that? Amethyst, green aventurine, citrine. If you think about it, agate grows with quartz. Most agate has quartz pockets and veins through it. A lot of chalcedony grows with quartz. So if it has quartz veining in it, I find that that's still very effective. And that's a little bit of an evolution in my own thinking, in my own process. And it's based on outcomes. If these things were not successful for me, I wouldn't teach them to you. So like T Power is saying, I've seen candles. And this is where I'm going to say, if you want to try other things, I would encourage you to try. In my experience, only quartz does it. And I'm going to explain to you why that is. I always had this feeling that that was true. And then when I experienced plant medicine and actually saw what conducts energy and what doesn't, that's what sealed the deal for me. I've done experiments while I've been on plant medicine, playing with different things to see how they conduct energy. I'm sure that doesn't surprise you. I wanted to, a couple times I've done that where I'm like, let me see what this does, let me see what that does, let me see what this does, let me see what that does. Quartz is, of all of the materials on this planet, as far as I have seen, has two properties that nothing else quite has. First of all, it is an incredible magnifier of energy, and it webs energy. I'll explain to you what this means in a minute. It webs, okay? Right now, Jamie, I'm only talking about the centerpiece of the grid. I will be talking about the other stones in just a minute, so I just don't want to confuse you because you can definitely use other stones in the grid. But right now, I'm just talking to you about the centerpieces. Quartz webs energy, meaning it accumulates energy. It gets stronger as it connects to the other stones in the grid. It's a synergistic effect. So the it's like quartz plus, 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 if that makes sense. Other stones don't do that. They don't web in quite the same way. And again, I'll explain what that means in a minute. The other thing quartz has the potential to do that really no other mineral does, is it's programmable. So you can program quartz, unlike other stones, to act as if it's any other stone. So when you're in a pinch, if you have quartz, you have whatever you need. Seriously. So if you're like, God, I really wish I had black tourmaline, you can program your quartz to behave as though it is. And we've done this. We've done this in class. We've done this in meditation over the decade that we've been working together. We've talked about this many times. Tralite does have quartz in it. A lot of stones do have quartz in them, but a lot of them don't. And so it's a good question. It actually might be worth me and Alexis, I don't know what you guys would think of this, but I'd be happy to work with Alexis on kind of like our master list of quartz-based minerals. Would that be helpful for you? So that you could kind of go, well, I don't know, is Super 7, and of course Super 7 is, or Light 23, which of course is. But you may want to have just like a quick list of which stones have quartz veining and which don't. I do not, by the way, I do not tend to order for Sage Goddess a lot of generators, spheres, and obelisks that are not quartz-based minerals because I know a lot of my customers are buying them for grids. And I hate to say, well, yeah, go ahead and buy that, but don't ever use it for a grid. It's like, well, what the heck? If I can't use it for a grid, what am I going to do? Okay, so Alexis, I'll work with you on this just to come up with like just our best thinking about quartz-based minerals. I think it'd be a great resource to have for our community. So we'll work on that for you. It'll take us a little while, so give us a week or so, and then once that's done, we'll pop it up in your classroom. Because I, if I was starting out, even if I wasn't starting out, I would like to have that list as well. Okay, so we'll do that. I love it. So that is centerpiece. Obelisks, generators, spheres, flames are my go-to. I don't do freeforms. I don't do basically anything that doesn't have a defined shape. And those are my favorites. Cubes are not great for the center of a grid because again, it's gonna disperse the energy, and it's not sending anything skyward. It's sending things to the four directions. Now that's great. Maybe that's what you're doing. I mean, maybe you're setting up like a 4-direction grid where you're trying to activate all the elements, earth, air, fire, and water. So maybe you'd want a quartz cube in the middle of your grid, right? That becomes sort of a personal choice. One of my favorite things to buy for gridding is the platonic solids. Now, I don't have any in stock, so if you want them, you're going to have to go to somebody else. COVID made a lot of things difficult, and one of the things I've had a real hard time getting in the house are platonic solids, meaning the 5 building blocks, right? The 5 basic shapes that make up our universe according to Plato. And the nice thing about having a set of platonic solids, especially in quartz, is you've got a tetrahedron, you've got a pyramid, right? You've got a triangle at least. It doesn't have a square base, but you've got one that you've got a point. And then you have a couple of other shapes that correspond to the 5 elements, so you can put those as the directions too, and that's a nice thing to have. So if you're looking for a basic tool to collect, again, you won't be able to get it from me, but you could go on Etsy or find it from someone else that you shop with and trust, would be to get a set of the platonic solids in a quartz-based mineral, which would mean aventurine, smoky quartz, amethyst, clear quartz, citrine. Yeah, they're just nice tools to have. In my opinion, I think they're great to have. Yeah, and I did that. I put the platonic solids around this grid because, again, remember, the platonic solids represent the elements. And it's nice to have balance on your grid, including balance of different stones, balance of different directions, balance of different elements, right? But you'll notice that there's still a quartz generator as a centerpiece. This grid is about 6 years old. Really corresponds more to my older thinking about grids as opposed to my newer thinking. Yeah. Okay. So that is centerpieces. Now, let's talk more about the additional stones. Any stones can go in a grid. Literally. I mean, there's no limit to it. Every stone has a vibration. They're not all as high vibe as quartz. And the clearer your quartz is, the higher the vibration is, too. So that's important to know. So I tend to choose kind of sexy pyramids and sexy, your pyramids on your grid are really clear. And that's because you really want that centerpiece to have the highest, tightest vibration it can possibly have. So the clearer your quartz is, the higher the vibration is going to be, and the more potent it's going to be as a generator of energy. Does that make sense? But you can do, someone was asking about tourmaline. Tourmaline's great. I have tourmaline in a lot of my grids. We don't have tourmaline in today's grid, but that's just because it's not my go-to stone for wealth and abundance. It's not as powerful for wealth as golden apatite, as emerald, as hessonite, as aventurine and citrine. It may have been a little bit further down the road. Green tourmaline can definitely be a prosperity stone, but for me it comes after these other ones, so I kind of prioritize those for your grid. But you can absolutely use tourmaline or any other stones that you love. The Synergy 12 grid is primarily a non-quartz based grid, right? It's tanzanite and tektite and brookite, and azeztulite is quartz, right? And you have your satyaloka, but the rest of the minerals are not quartz based, but they're still very powerful. So, so Space Daisy is asking, would you ever do a grid with the metallics, like pyrite, copper, magnetite? Absolutely would, because they conduct energy. I wouldn't use them as a centerpiece, but I would use them in the grid, and I might do a layer of copper at the corners of the grid or the outer edge of the grid. When you see, especially copper in sort of an altered state, you see what it does. Copper copper finds pathways between itself and other energies. It seeks to connect. It's a really powerful thing. Copper on your body is really important. If you have any kind of pain or arthritis or fibromyalgia, you should be wearing copper. A copper bracelet is fantastic. There's real science behind it, and it also is powerful as a conductor of energy in general. I love shungite too, and shungite's powerful in a grid. And shungite is nice because shungite is that constant purifier. It's like having a HEPA filter, for your stone. So I think having shungite somewhere in the proximity. Now, I have shungite in almost every room in this house because I think personally, and this is why I spent a whole month teaching you about shungite this year. Remember, was it February? If you weren't here in February, I spent a whole month teaching about the healing powers of shungite. Because it's really, for me, it's a hugely important material for us to be working with as healers. I have a feeling we're going to find out at some point, could be 10, 20, 30 years from now, that shungite has the capacity to prevent disease. I really do. I don't have science behind that to tell you that. It's just my intuition. But I'll tell you, we're going to be bringing a lot more shungite products to Sage Goddess because there's something there. My spirit guides have shared that with me. I have a lot of healer friends who feel the same way. I'm working with it a lot this year in particular around pandemic, right? Vaccine, all of that, because I do think it's like a vacuum cleaner, and I think it just clears the energy, and I think it's a master healer, and I think we're going to find out 10, 20 years from now more about shungite and what it does than we even know now. Yeah, it's powerful. And you know, people keep it in their water bottle. I actually found these really cool water bottles I kind of want to get for holiday. And it'll take 6 months to get them, but the inner liner is all shungite. So it's not actual shungite touching your water or your tea, but like the inner channel, the inner cavity is shungite. I would just like to have one for myself. So anyway, shungite is great too. When you set up a grid, there's a lot to consider. Okay, and we're going to get to that in the next section called when to grid. So I'll get to more of that in just a second, but I do want to talk about activating and deactivating a grid, because this is the other part of like the what you need. Okay, so putting my bell down. Now, there's different tools you can use to activate a grid. You can use a double terminated wand that looks like this. Now there's different kinds of double terminated wands. There we go. There are wands that are created like this, where the artist took a quartz point and a quartz point and fused them, right? Took metal and maybe put another stone in the center, things like that. Then there are double terminated wands like these fluorite wands that we have at Sage Goddess. Now this would not be the best for activating a grid, because it's not a quartz based mineral, but I'm just showing you for the sake of the shape. If you have something like this in quartz, whether it's a Vogel or a double terminated wand of any kind, if it's in quartz, this is a natural double term, meaning it hasn't been 2 points fused together by an artist. Does that make sense? And this is a created double terminated wand. Double terminated wands come in all different kinds of materials. Like this is the golden sheen one that we had at sagegoddess.com today. It's a beautiful wand. Again, not one I would use to activate a grid, but this is really good for sending and receiving energy. Different than our purposes today, but still worth mentioning. So really what the question becomes when you want to activate a grid is, do you want to use a single terminated wand, meaning it's got something else on one end and a point on the other? That's what we mean by single terminated. It's only terminated on one side. Or do you want to use a double terminated wand? Or if you don't have either of those, you're going to use your finger. This is your very, very, very magical tool. Selenite I do not use to activate wands. I love my selenite wand. I use it to open and close circles. This is the same wand I use all the time that you guys have been seeing me use for God knows how long now. But selenite does not conduct energy the way quartz does. Selenite, the way you should think of selenite is that it's like a sword of light, literally. When I cut through the air and open a circle with this, I've basically created a line of light around myself for the work that I'm doing. And when I release that line of light, that releases the boundary that I've established for the work that I'm doing. But this is not a tool that I would work with to activate. So Prehnite with Epidote sometimes has quartz inclusions. And like I said, we will work on a comprehensive list for you of all the quartz-based minerals so that you know, as you're shopping, wherever you shop, I just want you to know so that you can make the best decision for yourself. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so I'm going to show you physically how to activate and deactivate in just a few minutes, but those are the different kinds of tools. And like I said, what's nice is there's always an alternative. If you don't have any of these tools, you got finger, and that works. And then you can also use tools like the little wandlet. What did I do with the wandlet I'm giving away to you tonight? Well, the good news is I didn't go anywhere, so I know it's here. What did I do with that? Oh, here it is. This is a double terminated wand. It's just a little teeny one. The size does not matter, guys. We had I don't know if you saw the set of tools we had on SageGoddess.com today. It's the Sun Moon Bowl. And it came with a little double term quartz. This is a perfect tool for activating and deactivating grids. That's all you need. It could be even smaller than this. It could be a little 1-inch double term. It could be a Herkimer diamond. It's still a channeling stone. So it really doesn't matter how big it is, how small it is. Those are all perfect options for you. Yeah, so you have a lot of options, and you even have non-stone options, because the reality is you are a conductor of energy, right? So that's another way to think about it. Your stones are conductors of energy, but I don't think there's a better conductor of energy than you, right? I mean, we're all conductors of energy all the time. We're just not always consciously aware of the fact that we're doing it. For sure. Yeah, you can use your pendulum. Your pendulum is capped. The pendulum that I made for you is capped, which does disrupt the flow of the energy. Protects your point, but it disrupts the flow of the energy. But if you have a clear quartz pendulum that is not capped, that would actually be a great tool for you to use to activate your pendulum. Yeah. Okay, so that is everything about how to grid and the tools. Now, the last thing I want to tell you is when you set up your grid, you always put quartz points, if you're doing it my way, you always put quartz points at the 4 directions, okay? That is north, south, east, and west. Do you see these little quartz points? Now your kit came with 5, and that's because some of you, I imagined, would want to put quartz points at the actual terminations of the pentagon. Do you see what I did there? Okay. Extraction needles are great for activating grids. They're great for activating grids. Thank you for asking about that. I completely forgot, because the last time I taught gridding, I didn't have activation needles or the extraction needles. It was kind of a newer creation. They're awesome for activating grids. They're single terminated ones, the extraction needles. So it was really smart that you thought of that, because they absolutely do work. Okay, now there's one thing I want to teach you about here that's really important. Okay? Your little quartz points are terminated, right? Meaning they have a natural point on one side and they're cut on the other side. Vocals are great too. 1000% vocals are great. Okay? Now, if you want to, let's say I'm building this grid, and let's say my intention, and I do this sometimes, let's say my intention is I want everybody to have prosperity in this world. And I'll tell you something, that's the mark of an evolved soul, is if you're willing to set up a prosperity grid, not for yourself, but for the collective. I don't know a lot of people who do that. Most people I know who set up prosperity grids, they're focused on themselves, which I think is great. But you know, it is possible to grid for yourself and everybody else too. And what I have found is the more prosperity other people have, the more easily prosperity flows to you too. So it's just something to think about. Like anymore, when I do manifestation stuff, when I set up grids for healing or for wealth or for abundance, I have not found that it diminished my own experience to also turn those points out and call in that energy for the collective. Does that make sense? But it's up to you. And some people feel like, no, I just want to focus on me, and they want to direct all that energy into their own home, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's some benefit sometimes, right? Okay, so when you have all of the points facing out, all of the terminations facing out, away from the centerpiece, okay? You are sending the energy out of the grid. When you turn all those points inward, you are sending the energy in to the generator. What does that do? What that does, remember that everything, your quartz points, your gemstones, everything vibrational has a 12-inch field. Okay, meaning 12 inches all around you and 12 inches all around it is its personal or primary energetic field, what I call the PEF, okay? When you turn all those points in, the energy coagulates inside the PEF. When you turn them out, it disperses the energy outside the PEF and it raises the frequency for the collective. Now, is that a dilution? It is to a certain extent, right? But I also have found that energy builds and it grows. And so when I send my grid energy out into the world, it connects with like energies. I feel like this grid can connect with somebody else's prosperity grid. Wouldn't it be cool to grid our grids together? If anybody wants to do that tonight, I would love to do that. One of my favorite stories, and there's so much I want to tell you, it's like I'm trying to fit it all in tonight. Yeah, you can. I don't know if you saw, Vanya, I don't know if you saw my grid, but do you see the double terms? I use double terms. These are those little double terms we have at Sage Goddess right now, the aura ones. That's what I did. This is a little powerhouse grid, I'll tell you. This is my chakra balancing blessing grid. Yeah, so we can grid them together. There's a man in Tucson. There's several people in Tucson. This is like the magic behind the scenes of Tucson. I wrote about this in a blog like 5 or 6 years ago, but if you haven't read it, I'll just tell you the story really quick. So he actually builds a grid at Tucson, and he grids everybody's grids together. So there are people across the show, you know, sellers, but they're also practitioners. And so they will build a grid in their little part of the show, and then they will grid their grid to the person down the way, and the person down the way grids their grid to somebody else. And I was helping them activate a grid to, not this last show because I wasn't there, but the show before that. I was helping them do this broader grid activation, and it's powerful. It is really powerful because grids are like, think of like the ley lines and vortex points on the planet, right? Energy wants to find other energy. It's looking for its like vibration, just like we are, right? We're looking for our people, our kindred. The crystals are doing the same thing. They're looking to find the like vibration. And so the energy of the crystals goes out into the universe, and it's like trying to find it, and it meshes together. What we say in quantum physics is it entangles with each other. And those particles, once they entangle, vibrate together at the same frequency. So again, what I'm telling you is not like woo-woo. This is particle physics, right? And so it's really cool because there's actual science behind this. And so when I talk about webbing tonight, I'm really talking about particle physics. I'm talking about entanglement at the quantum level, which is subatomic. You can't see it, right? But it's happening on this vibrational level. And that's the power of a grid. That's why it works. And that's why that's why I think it's worth taking the time to set up a grid and spend the time activating the grid and doing it at the right moon phase and on the power days and all those things, because there's real energy behind it. You know what I mean? So we'll grid to each other tonight. We'll do a little quantum entanglement tonight. I think that would be fun. So does that make sense with points out versus points in? And then it's just a judgment call for you. If you're building a grid for one particular person for healing in your family, points in. Right? If you're building a grid for planetary healing, which I did this year during the pandemic, points out. I mean, I was building that grid specifically to try to make like a beacon of energy for the collective, and so my intention was the collective, and therefore my architecture was for the collective. Yeah, the grids entrain to each other. That's exactly what happens. The frequencies match, and remember, what's really cool about having multiple grids in your house is that energy always, it seeks a like vibration, but it will entrain to the lowest vibration in a space. That's why, you know, a lot of us who feel like we are light workers or light bringers, we feel a lot of pressure because whenever we walk into a room, we're trying to raise the vibration from its baseline, and it's been entrained to the lowest frequency in the room. That's why teachers pay attention to the problem students. That's why, you know, hecklers, you know, distract people. It's because energy naturally flows toward the lowest point. Consciously, as a healer and a practitioner, you can teach yourself not to do this. You can teach yourself to entrain to the highest frequency in the room, but if you leave all things as they are, energy naturally will entrain to the lowest frequency. So it's really important to train yourself. If you find yourself doing that, right? Like as a teacher, I would always focus on the poorest performing student or the student who was creating problems. If you find yourself doing that, or as a parent, right, it's like you're always focused on your kid who's getting in trouble. I don't do that. I focus on where they're doing great, and I try to focus on, building their strengths and their confidence, as opposed to just writing them all the time about things they're not doing well, because I'm aware that energy naturally takes that decline. Does that make sense? Okay, so if the points you're using are double terminated, everything I just said doesn't matter. Ta-da! I kind of wasted your time. But most of the time, you're not going to be gridding with double terms, because double terms are harder to find, and at some point you'll be gridding with single terminated. So I still wanted to tell you all of this, even though if you're gridding with double terms, nothing I said matters. How do you feel about that? Where did I find the rhodozite pieces on my grid? If we have them at Sage Goddess, we have rhodozite. Rhodozite's a damn trip. Rhodozite is like a firework. I don't know if we have any more. If we do, I can have Alexis put them in class tools so you can use your discount code. They're tiny little crystals, but they're like firecrackers, and they take your manifestation and Sylvia had one big piece of rhodozite. I still have my ring from her, and I can't wear that ring very often because it's literally like wearing a firecracker on your hand, but it does that for the grids. Okay, so that's everything about how. Now I want to focus for the next part, and like I said, there'll be time at the end of our time together tonight for questions, so if you have questions and I'm not getting to them now, I will get them to you. I will get to them at the end of our session. I just want to make sure I focus and get through all my notes, because I have so much I'm trying to cover tonight. When to grid. This is a big, important conversation, and this I've never taught before, so I'm actually really excited to take you through, because this is brand new content that I haven't shared with you before. So, Exhibit A, darling. This is a Sage Goddess worksheet. We will post this for you, so you do not need to try and find this or where is that or anything like that, okay? But I did want to walk you through this. My favorite phases to grid are the new moon, the first quarter, and the full moon. And I'll get to deactivating. I'm not quite there yet. Stay with me. I'll get there. Because I'm actually going to show you activating and deactivating when we set up our grid together in just a few minutes. Okay, so we have these 8 primary phases of the moon, okay? The new moon is the dark moon, right? We just went through a new moon ceremony together. And that's when you set intentions, initiate new ideas, projects, and new beginnings, okay? That's this phase right here. This is the best phase for setting up a new grid, okay? If you want to charge a grid or recharge a grid, like power it up, this is the best phase for that work. Set up, take down, power up, okay? Set up, take down, power up. The reason I do like the first quarter, and this is just me being candid with you, sometimes I want to set up a grid mid-cycle. I missed the new moon. What do? First quarter is an activation phase, okay? So what's nice about first quarter is it gives you another opportunity for setup and for teardown, okay, that isn't necessarily the new moon. For some reason, I don't find the waxing crescent or the waxing gibbous when it's almost full, I don't find those to be the best phases to work with. Like I said, setup and teardown is ideal at the new moon. Okay, first quarter is your backup plan, and then full moon is let's charge this baby up. Maybe you got a new crystal and you want to add. Full moon is a great time to add and reactivate your grid. Okay, and yeah, these graphics will come in your notes. They're totally printable. You can save them. We make these for you, so I'm just sharing this with you for right now. So that is the moon phase information. So let me come to you now. I'm going to set up this grid with you. Here's the trade-off, okay? Are we in first quarter right now, Alexis, or Are we waxing gibbous or first quarter right now? Alexis will check. The reason we need to set up this grid now, in my opinion, is by the time the next new moon comes, we're not going to be in May. And May is the money month. So it's really, really, really important. Oh, she already put the graphics in your classroom. How good is Alexis, man? You're the best, Alexis. I really appreciate you. I didn't know she already did that. It's first quarter. So we're working with the backup energy. Yeah, it's first quarter. So we're working with that. What I don't want to do is miss the May window. You know what I mean? Because it's still better to work within a power period. This is a power month. Than it is to wait and work with a new moon that's in a different cycle. Does that make sense? First quarter is Friday. Maybe Wednesday night. I'm gonna go ahead and do mine now. We are waxing, so I like to set up a grid with some waxing energy. I think it's productive, so I wouldn't want to do it in a waning phase. With a waning phase, you're releasing energy. You're not building energy, right? So at least in a waxing moon phase, we can gather up the energy we need. It's not perhaps the ideal phase, but it's not bad. Yeah. Waxing crescent. Okay. I think it's good enough. Remember, waxing crescent, right, is showing commitment to your intentions by establishing roots and building a strong foundation. It's not bad. Okay, you ready for my next trick? We also want to look at the day of the week. Now, I prefer Mondays to Wednesdays for gridding because Monday is ruled by the moon. Moon day, right? Sunday's a great day to grid. It's ruled by the sun, so that's purpose. Tonight is intention and mystery, right? Tuesday's good too. It's an initiation energy. Tuesday belongs to Mars. Wednesday is Mercury day, so that's communication. Not as powerful. Thursday is Jupiter. Also Thor, right? Thor's day. It's got very powerful energy of growth. It's very strength, higher learning, expansion energies. Jupiter's all about expansion, right? Friday is, if you're doing a grid for love, you always want to do it on a Friday. So that's why I'm trying to teach you the power days. This is also in your classroom, by the way, so you don't have to look for this, but it'll be there. Saturday, obviously, ruled by Saturn. Saturdays are hard days. Saturn for me is a hard planet. A lot of people love Saturdays because it's the weekend and they don't have to work, and I totally get that. Saturday is not my favorite day of the week. Friday is my favorite day of the week. It's very Venusian. It's very about love. The energy's open. I love Fridays. I always feel pressured on Saturdays, like to get stuff done that I didn't do during the week. The laundry's got to get done. Are the sheets clean? Are the kids, have they taken a shower? Because it always feels like a chore day. So I don't know how you feel about Saturdays, but because they're ruled by Saturn, I've always had this tough relationship with Saturdays. It's up to you how you feel about it. But those are the primary energies of the days. So now you can think about, it gives you kind of some tools, right? You can look at, okay, so what moon phase am I in? What moon phase do I want to be in? What day of the week is it? What are the energies of that day of the week? And then you can start to make your decisions and choices based on all of that. So for me, this is like empowerment. I love Sundays too. I really do. I feel spiritual on Sundays. I tend to really do very little on Sundays. But Saturdays are like, especially as a mom, and when my kids had games and tournaments, and I was like, Saturdays were the busiest day of the week, right? It's always laundry day. And laundry is my least favorite thing to do in the world. Maybe that's why I don't like Saturdays. Are you the same way about Saturdays? Okay, well, I'm not the only one. It makes me feel better. Okay, so that is when to grid. Now I want to talk briefly about how long to leave up your grids, okay? As long as you want. I get attached to grids. I do. I prefer, now this is just me personally, okay? And looking at time of day, this is a great question too. Thank you for asking about that. Core Madrid, it was a great question. 12 noon ruled by the sun, 12 midnight ruled by the moon. We know this, right? So yin yang. I like to grid during the day. Some people really prefer to grid in the middle of the night, and that is completely up to you. Most of my chart is dominated by solar energy. And so my son's in the 10th house. I was born at 1129, right? Like high 10th house. So I feel much more sun governed. So I like to grid during the day, and my power hour is 11 to 12 p.m., 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Whatever hour you were born in, that's your power hour. So if you find, that you love, like my husband was born at like 5:30 in the morning, he's always up by 5:30 a.m. Like clockwork, even on the weekends, drives me nuts. I'm always like, can't you just stay in bed and cuddle? But he's a Virgo, he's a double Virgo, and he was born at 5:30, right? I'm like, really, I come alive at 11:30. You know what I mean? That's my power hour. So look up your birth time. That's your power hour, and that's probably going to be the best time for you to grid. And then day, and then moon phase. Yeah. If you were born around noon, you're a out in front person. If you were born at midnight, you're a behind the scenes person, and then it's everything in between. Right? And don't you always feel better at your power hour? Thank you for asking, Core Madrid. It's like high five, high 10 to you for asking that question, because it's a very important question. I get attached to grids, and I like to add to them rather than take them down and set up something else. When I build a grid, I really put my heart in it. And I usually have, if I'm going to set up a grid, there's usually some compelling reason to do that. And very infrequently do I look and say, yeah, I'm kind of done with that grid. I don't need that anymore. Like when you set up this grid, is there really going to be a time where you're like, I've got every bit of wealth and abundance I could ever ask for? I mean, I wish that for you. I hope that you will. I hope that you will absolutely make all your financial dreams come true, and maybe you'll never need anything again. But I think most people are still going to be like, I got kids going to college in a couple years. You know what I mean? I gotta think about that on top of my own retirement and all those things. So it's hard for me to imagine taking down a prosperity grid. But if you've reached all your financial goals, yeah, maybe you would, maybe you'd take down your prosperity grid and not need it anymore. I happen to think that the grid we're building now together is one you may want to leave up for quite a long time. It doesn't take up a lot of space. You could glue the stones down so you don't have to baby it or take special care of it, and then just put it somewhere in the southeast, and we'll talk about Bagua in just a minute, which will give you more of a guiding framework for where to put your grids. Yeah. It's true. There's always, and it's true, I always think about that too. It's like the more abundance you attract, the more you have to give to other people. Before I was able to create Sage Goddess, I really couldn't do much philanthropy in the world. Now, through Sage Goddess, I'm able to do a ton of philanthropy in the world. And so it feels really good because, when you're able to experience some prosperity, I mean, hopefully you would share it and do good things with other people in the world, and I think it opens the door to be able to do that too. So, okay. So, that's how long to leave up your grids. Pretty much however long you want. I don't think you can make a mistake. But the most important thing is if you're going to take a grid down and deactivate it, which I'll show you how that works in just a couple of minutes, that's new moon work. I don't deactivate and remove grids at any other phase because that, the dark moon and the new moon, dark moon is the night before the new moon, those are my favorite deactivation periods. Yeah. And if there's only one place in your house you can put it, there's still a north, south, east, and west. even if your room is this big, and I have had, because I have lived in teeny tiny spaces, Dave's in my first apartment was the size of this room. And right down the street from the first Sage Goddess location, which is really cute. I think it was like, I don't even know, it was tiny, okay? At the time it was very sweet because we were so in love, we didn't want to be apart. But, now I think it wouldn't go well for me to live in one room with him now, 20 years later. But anyway, I had a very small space where I could put something, but there's still a north, south, east, and west, and still things to think about, right? It's really true. Okay, so now we're going to talk about why to grid. First of all, if you have an intention, there's something you want to do. You want to experience greater prosperity. You want to experience greater health. You want to experience greater joy, peace, whatever it is, happiness, right? You can grid for almost anything. And so everything begins with an intention, right? So that's the number one thing. Then there's seasonality. Maybe you want to set up a grid for the holidays, or for peace in your home, or maybe you want to set up a grid for the harvest to ensure a good harvest. There are a lot of people who do that. So there are seasonal grids too that take into account, okay, what season are we in? How does that relate to the energy of whatever's happening, right? So that's something to consider too. And then a lot of people, myself included, have, and this is why I created this grid, which we still have at Sage Goddess. I designed this grid myself. I wanted it, and the team made it for me. It says, bless the intention of this grid with gratitude, love, joy, healing, prosperity, and positive energy. So this is like the all-purpose, multi-purpose grid. This one is really good for people who hold space for other people. I do that. I'm sure you do that, right? And so what I like to do, and I actually learned this from one of my teachers who does this, is you set up the grid, and then if you want to include someone in your grid, if you have their permission, write their name on a piece of paper and you slide it under. John of God, if you ever go to the Casa in Brazil, I think it's closed now because he was having some legal troubles, but at the time the Casa was operating, they actually did that on the wall. They had these big triangular, I have one of them here from the Casa. They have these big wooden triangular grids that they would attach to the wall, and they would stick names behind it. So you can grid on a wall, to Bonnie's question earlier, you can grid on a ceiling, and then you can tuck names and people behind it or underneath it. Isn't that cool? Yeah, this is a Sage Goddess. It comes with a whole set of stones too for blessing. It's kind of cool. There's not a lot of them, but if you want one, you can get one. Don't leave class though. You can get that later. So those are, for me, that's what it is. I either have an intention, something specific I want to do. I want to hold space for somebody else, so I need to set that up. Or there's something seasonal or holiday based, right, that's prompting me to set up a grid. Maybe you set up an elemental grid when we change the seasons, right? So maybe you have an earth-based grid, then it comes to spring, you want to change it out to an air-based grid, then it comes to summer, we're getting ready to launch the fire grid, then you get to fall, it's the water grid, right? So maybe you change out your altar seasonally. I have a really good friend, and like this is goals for me, I don't have this, but she does. She has a grid in her home at the 4 cardinal directions for that direction. And so her water, her water altar has a water grid and abalone shells, and it's, chalices full of water. And then her earth grid in the north of her home, has plants and crystals and all kinds of things, and all the earth element, antlers and all kinds of things. So you can do that too if you want. I don't have all 4 set up anywhere all the time, but it's, like I said, it's goals for me. Okay, and then why to grid. So let's talk about why. Oh no, I'm sorry, where. Indoors and outdoors. I have grids set up inside my house, and I have grids set up outside my house. I'm going to show you 2 of my, one is a grid and one is an altar. So this is my outdoor, and a lot of you have seen this because I take you outside, when I go live and stuff. This is my outdoor Lakshmi grid. So it has my Lakshmi statue, which I love so much. It has a green aventurine generator. We had this at Sage Goddess like eons ago. We don't have this anymore. It had the 4 wealth symbols on it. Then I have my 4 directional generators, and then I'm lucky. I have a friend who bought citrine in Brazil like 30 years ago, when they were still getting huge points of natural citrine out of the mine. They're not finding this anymore, this kind of material. But he gave me 4 pieces of that of equal size. So I have 4 of those there too. So that's and then this is placed outside at the southeast of my garden, which is the direction that I'll show you in just a second for where to put your wealth and prosperity altar. Whether you're indoors or outdoors, the southeast in Feng Shui is the corner of wealth, without question, without doubt. So if you're going to go through the trouble and time and expense of setting up a prosperity grid, do yourself a favor and put it in the correct location. And like I said, even if you only have 1 room, that room still has a north, south, east, and west. I took another shot of it to show you the other, like from above, but I don't think you need to see that. It doesn't make much of a difference. And then this is more of an altar, but I want to show it to you because this is the, these are Phoenix Stone generators. And then this is a cloisonne Kuan Yin. I actually got it on eBay, and I won it in an auction, and I was so excited. If you ever won an eBay auction and you're just so excited, I literally was shaking. I was so excited because I got it for a good price. My deal with myself was I'm not going to increase my bid. So I put what I was willing to spend, and I just shut the computer and walked away. I'm like, if it's meant to be mine, and I ended up winning it, so I was really excited about that. So that's my Kuan Yin, and then I put, used to have these Healer's Gold roses, and then these are that crazy quartz from Tanzania that's all etched. It looks like lightning strike quartz. So this isn't necessarily a grid in the sense that it doesn't have the 4 quartz points, but the outer edges are held with quartz so it conducts the energy. And so this is an outdoor compassion grid with stones that are durable, right? That grid has been out there for a couple of years now and has done really well in the elements. So it's hanging in there. So that's indoor, outdoor. And like I said, we're going to get you a list of the quartz-based minerals. I'll tell you, certain stones don't belong outside, okay? Difference between an altar and a grid. A grid is a very specific structure where you have a centerpiece. You have quartz points at the 4 directions, what we call the quarters, or quarters and cross quarters. Maybe you have 8 or you have 4. And the stones are set up in pairs, sets of 2, sets of 4, sets of 8, for a specific intention. An altar doesn't necessarily have a grid, but a grid can be an altar. You can have an altar without a grid. This is my altar here in my crystal room. It has a grid on it right now, but normally it doesn't. It has a little Buddha statue and an orchid plant and my chalice and my bell and things like that. But it doesn't typically have a grid on it. It just does today because I'm setting it up there so I can show you how to do it. I'm glad you asked that too. Okay, so the last thing I want to teach you before we set up our grids tonight. Oh, I was telling you about stones for outside. Here are the stones I do not put outside. You ready? Selenite, aragonite, those stones are going to break down if they're exposed to the elements for too long. And if I tell you something's safe to go outside, it's safe to go outside here in Southern California where we don't have snow, but we sometimes get fire, right? We get intense winds, we get rain, we get heavy fog here because I live right on the coast. So for the next 60 days, we're fogged in every day. It's like London. So they're exposed to ongoing moisture and they're fine. Remember this, your crystals have been through more in the process of forming within the earth than anything you're really ever going to subject them to. High heat, intense flow of water, sometimes being submerged in water for millions of years, just like the hydrothermal quartz we had this week at Sage Goddess. Remember that, where it's all alluvial etched? So it's very hard to hurt your crystals, most of them, because they've been through more than you could ever withstand, right? But some crystals don't do well. Salt can be a factor too. And I definitely get a lot of, because I live right next to the ocean, so there's a lot of sea breeze and there's a lot of salt in the air. Sometimes you can smell it, sometimes you can taste it. Especially if we have an onshore flow, which we have right now, you can really like taste the salt water. So here are the stones I would say never go outside. Selenite, aragonite, they're going to break down, right? Selenite is gypsum and it's water soluble. It's a nightmare in water, right? Some stones will fade on you. Amethyst, if it's left out in direct sunlight for years, will fade. My citrine has been in full sunlight outside for about 6 years now, has never faded. Quartz loves to be outside. Aventurine will not fade on you. I've had 2 aventurine generators outside for 15 years now in different parts of my garden, never faded. Rose quartz has never faded for me. I've had a generator outside now for about 8 or 9 years. Obsidian does great outside. Turquoise is great outside, usually stands up to the elements. Fluorite is a little fragile, so you want to be careful, right? Fluorite, you look at it the wrong way, it's going to split, right? It's very soft on the measure of hardness scale. You know, the number one thing that will break your heart if you put it outside, because it will mess it up, is calcite. Calcite, especially if it's really beautiful optical calcite, will go completely opaque. And it doesn't take long. It can take a couple of days. I had the most beautiful when I was a newbie collecting. I mean, I'm talking like maybe 21, 22 years old. I'll never forget. I wanted a sphere and I couldn't afford quartz. I just wanted a little one, but I mean, we're talking maybe I had like $10 to spend, okay? So I remember going into a metaphysical shop and I thought, well, at least I can get a clear calcite sphere, right, for $10. I was so excited. And I wanted to take it outside and I wanted to do my rituals with it, and I left it outside and I'm like, oh, it looks so pretty outside. And it wasn't even a week later, that thing was like my blanket on the bed. It was milky, the translucency was gone. Kunzite does fade outside too. So Stephanie, I'm talking about, everything I'm talking about now can actually be left in freezing temps and snow. Most of my friends live in the Midwest and on the East Coast in my life. So, and most of the crystals they have, you know, in their gardens and stuff have either come from me or we've talked about it and they've set up their grids. And so whether it's New York or Indiana or DC or Florida, all of the elements, quartz, aventurine is fine, rose quartz, obsidian is good. A lot of these things are going to be very strong and durable for you. Quartz is just a go-to. It's always going to be okay outside. Even if you let it be, you know, sit under the snow for ever, right? So, and I actually think it's so fun, like when I see someone like Sherry Copeland post pictures of her patio, usually in the wintertime, at least once or twice. And I just think it's so beautiful because her statues are all covered and the crystals are all covered. So anyway, I'm such a fan of you guys who live in these intense climates, you know, and I love watching what you do because I also learn from watching you as well. Pegmatite's going to be fine in those conditions because tourmaline's going to hold up. Labradorite's going to be fine. Your feldspars are going to be fine. Those minerals are tough. Your moonstones, your labradorites are all going to be fine. Yeah. Yeah, very cool. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you, and then we're going to get gridding, is the Bagua map. Now, let me explain how this works as clearly as I can because it tends to be confusing, but it doesn't need to be. This is actually very, very simple. Smoky quartz is fine too. When you look at this, okay, this can be one room, or this can be your house, or this can be your property, okay? So it can go micro down to one room. This can be your closet. Okay, and yes, I had to use a closet when Dave and I lived together. Sherry Copeland's here. I love you, Sherry Copeland. I think it's so cool that you're here. Okay, so this is the entrance, okay, to the room, to the house, or to the property. Does that make sense? To the room, to the house, to the property. So when I say southeast, I'm saying from the perspective of the entrance. Does that make sense? I've finally figured out how to teach this that will not confuse the crap out of everybody, okay? From the entrance, front door, or door of the closet, or the gate to your property, these are the corners. So southeast, we talked about that as wealth. Prosperity, fortune, good blessings, right? Appreciation, gratitude. And what's interesting is in my house, when you walk in the main entrance, my bedroom is the farthest right room. When I walked into this house, I knew it was my house for a lot of different reasons. There's a fountain outside in the southeast corner, right where my Lakshmi statue is. And my Lakshmi sits under my Meyer lemon tree. And then my bedroom was in the southwest corner. So I was like, well, this is already feng shuied for us. We don't have to do anything, right? So this is the corner of love partnership. It should be your bedroom. If it's not, you can put your love altar in the southwest corner, even if that's not your bedroom. My crystal room in this house is right here. It's in the northwest corner. Helpful people, unseen assistance, benevolence, and synchronicity. This is the ideal corner or part of your home or room, again, for sacred spaces. So that worked out really well. In my house, it's nice if you can have people studying in the northeast corner. This is the living room in my house, and this is where I write my books and where I write your class content, and I write blogs and all the things that I do for Sage Goddess. I do all of my writing in the wisdom corner. That's inner knowledge, self-improvement, stillness, introspection. This is my living room. This is kind of like family room, living room area. They're kind of combined. So that's really good for group support, strength. The heart of your home is always the middle of the home. This is where you should go for balance and vitality. My dining room is here. My kitchen happens to land in the area of joy and inspiration in my house. So it's fun to kind of look at your home through this lens. And if you can't change your rooms, you know what I mean? Or if you're like me and you used to live in one room, at least be thinking about where you can put the crystals, right? At least put a rose quartz in that southwest corner, put a citrine in that southeast corner, even if you push it under the carpet, you know what I mean? Something here to recognize and honor sacred space in this northwest corner. Something here to represent wisdom, a little sapphire under the carpet maybe in the northeast, and you can see this. So no, at least the way I was trained is it's not by the compass, it's by the directions as you stand at the entrance. Yeah, it can actually be. in my house, it actually is by the compass. As I walk into my house, that is by the compass. But for some people, as they enter, it's not by the compass. So it kind of depends on how you do it. Yeah. So is this helpful? So for tonight's work, which is wealth, right, and prosperity, what you want to do is you want to figure out where you're going to put this little grid that we're doing together. Now this grid is a wood grid. The stones, by the way, are all stones that would be fine outside. These stones are not going to fade. They're not going to surrender to the elements. So let's say you wanted to put this grid outside. I would probably just tell you maybe don't do it on the wood. Maybe wait and do this grid. Hang out with us tonight, watch the process, but maybe wait and do this grid and put it outside on a stone. Does that make sense? You don't have to use this wood base. If you want to make this an outdoor grid, you can use a different base for it. I love it. Erica says, creativity room is our bathroom. Yeah, isn't that cool? So as you walk in the door, the direction you're facing represents north. As you walk in the door, the direction you're facing against the back wall is going to be south. Yeah, so let me show you that one more time. So you're at the main entrance. That back wall is going to be south. And that front wall is going to be north. Yeah. If you have an upstairs, you do the same thing. Yeah, you can put the wood grid in a Ziploc bag. There's no problem with that. Yeah. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to set this up with you and I want to activate it. Now, there are different perspectives on whether you need to open a circle when you activate a grid. I like to do it because why not? What I do when I'm activating a grid is just a quick and easy circle opening. I don't go long extended remix version. It's just opening the circle. I want to welcome in the guides and the guardians of the east, the south, the west, and the north to be here with us, including the guardians of the energies of wealth, prosperity, and abundance, and call those energies in. The reason I like to open a circle is I like to welcome my spirit guides who govern prosperity and abundance. I like to welcome ancestors who are able to support this work. You don't want to call in a bunch of energies if you don't open a circle. So I would say if you want to activate a grid, build a grid, and you don't care about calling in spirit guides, higher self, ancestors, light beings who have mastery in this domain, then you probably don't need to open a circle. But I do like to do it, so that's why I opened a circle just now. Quick, easy, does not have to be extended remix, but it gives you the air cover you need to safely call in guides and guardians to help you. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's go over. So from my perspective, I gotta tell you, I think this is just party bonus. You can take these little pieces if you want, and you can add, I mean, peridot's great, right? Peridot, the reason peridots are small is they don't crystallize in big crystals. Peridot is actually a very, it terminates in really small pieces. So you could take one of each and add them, you know, in between your stones if you want to. We just kind of gave that to you as a party bonus. You don't have to use it. Now, you can set it up the way I did with the quartz point at all 5 corners, or you can just have 4. And like I said, I'm of 2 minds about it. Part of me likes just having the 4 at the quarters, but part of me also likes that, you know, we made this to be a pentagonal grid. And I'm setting this up for everybody. Hold on. I'm activating this grid for collective abundance. So let me turn the points out. Points out. This is for everybody. Okay, I'm doing this because if you don't have the grid, I'm gridding for you. So you don't have to worry about it. I've got you covered. You can start gluing now if you want. My mom didn't know when she was due. My mom I don't think she was really on top of that. I know that sounds probably really funny to say. I was ish, you know what I mean, like on time, but I don't know if I was to the day. It's an interesting question. I'll have to ask her that. Okay, so I'm gonna activate this grid. I'm gonna use different tools so I can show you how to do it, okay? What I always do is I figure out where I want to begin the activation. And I usually do it at the northernmost tip of the grid, okay? You start at the center, but you have to extend out and you have to start somewhere. And remember, we activate clockwise and we deactivate counterclockwise. Now I'm going to teach you how to deactivate, but I'm not going to deactivate tonight because I'm activating. So I don't want to activate and then remove all the energy. Now you can add other crystals to this. Let's say you didn't like these smaller quartz points, you wanted bigger mama quartz points, you can do that. Let's say you had other prosperity stones that you were really connected to, whatever that would be. You can add those in. Let's say you had the little, you know, the little cutie aura quartz points, and you wanted to add those in. Every time you add something like this, you magnify the energy. So you can certainly do that and take it to the next level. I'm going to leave mine really simple because, first of all, I like simplicity. And I don't think you need more than what's here. I would have given you more if I thought you needed it. So I've put my pyramid in the center. I've put my hessonite garnet, which is called the Gomed in India. This is one of the most important stones for prosperity and abundance. I put that here. Next, I've put my emerald. Emerald comes from Brazil and India. Emerald is a stone of fidelity, wisdom, and wealth. It teaches you how to keep your money. It also brings discernment about financial matters. So if you haven't been good with money before, emerald can help you with that. Yellow apatite is the ultimate stone of manifestation. That's why I put it in the wand that I'm giving away to one of you. It's right here in the middle. This is a yellow apatite from my personal collection that I've worked with many times. It's been on grids of mine before. So that's why I thought it was really cool to include that. So that's going to help you manifest and speed up the manifestation. This is aventurine. This creates new opportunities. It also creates luck. It's the right place, right time stone. So it creates synchronicity too. And then this is Congo citrine, which I'm actually out of at sagegoddess.com right now. We're getting more in, but it's getting harder to find because of the pandemic. So this is natural citrine, tumbled, and that's the merchant stone for wealth and abundance. Yeah, I'm doing 2 giveaways tonight. One is for people who are shopping. So if you shop at sagegoddess.com, it's only for Crystal Masters. If you shop today or tomorrow, you're entering to win this wand that was custom made with stones from my own collection. And then if you're not shopping, you can comment in our Facebook group and enter to win this blue tourmaline double terminated wand, Let. So I've got 2 prizes for you tonight. And it's just for Crystal Masters. Okay, so focusing here now, I'm going to start with a double terminated wand. And what I like to do is hold the wand over the center pyramid and focus and set my intention. Okay? You can put extra stones at any point in the grid. So between other crystals, some people lay crystals all around. I saw one of you had put chip stones at every single little point out here. I mean, you can really take this to another level, okay? So my intention for this grid tonight is to raise the frequency, to raise the vibration of wealth, prosperity, abundance, flow, and ease for all who are here and all who are on this planet at this time. I'm calling in dreams come true, wishes, fulfillment, wealth, ease, flow for all beings on this planet. May everyone have exactly what they need to make their personal financial dreams come true. This is a collective grid. So my intention is set, okay? If you don't have a wand, I'm gonna teach you partly how to do this with your finger. So get excited about that. But I'm showing you 3 different tools tonight as we go, okay? So my intention is set. Now what you do is you go first to the outermost quartz point. You go from the center to the outermost quartz point. And I like to speak it as I go. So I call in the frequency of quartz, the energy of quartz, to magnify and to intensify the vibration of wealth. And I call in the energy of quartz to magnify and intensify the energy of wealth, and back to center. And then you go to the next innermost stone. I call in the energy of hessonite garnet to bring radical wealth, abundance, and ease to everyone here right now and everyone on this planet at this time, and back to center. And then I go out to this cutie pie little peridot right here. And I call in peridot's energy of cornucopia, all things at all times, greater abundance, flow, and prosperity than anyone has ever experienced before, beyond the realm of dreams come true, and back to center. And then I go out to this outermost quartz point. I call in the energies of quartz for magnification and intensification, and back to quartz. I call in the energies of emerald. I call in energies of discernment. I call in energies of knowing how to create greater financial abundance. And I call in energies of wisdom and fidelity, and back to center. Now let me show you how it goes with my finger, okay? I call in peridot, the cornucopia stone. I call in peridot's energies of all things at all times, making more available now than has ever been available before, and back to center. I go out to the outermost quartz and I call in the energies of quartz for magnification and intensification, and back to center. I call in energies of yellow apatite for rapid manifestation, for things aligning in perfect order and perfect time, to be in the right place at the right time, to know exactly how to manifest, and to be able to call in the resources, the people, the ideas that I need to make the dreams come true. I call in that speedy manifestation for all beings on this planet at this time, and back to center. I call in the energy of peridot. And yes, you say it again, even if you're repeating, okay? Because you haven't called in this one yet. I call in the energies of all things at all times, greater flow, prosperity, and ease than they have ever known. And may that be theirs, and back to center. And then I go to that outermost quartz point. I call in the energies of quartz for magnification and intensification, and back to center. I call in the energies of green aventurine, which is growth, abundance, fertility, good luck, another right place, right stone, right place, right time stone, being in the right place at the right time with the right people, and things just magically happening, spontaneous manifestation with aventurine, and back to center. And now I'll show you with a single terminated quartz point, okay? With the one that one of you is going to win. I call in the energies of peridot, the all things at all times stone, to bring everything that everyone seeks in all the forms that they seek it, and back to center. I call in the energy of quartz for magnification and intensification, and back to center. I call in the energy of Congo Citrine from the Republic of the Congo, deep in the continent of Africa. I call in power from that ancient and sacred place to help us create prosperity, flow, and wealth in new ways that anchor that wealth in time, in magic, and that help to create that flow, those rivers of prosperity, and bring it directly to our door and back to center. I call in energies of Peridot, the all things at all time stone, to create a river of abundance, a cornucopia of all that we seek, and back to center. And then last but not least, I seal the circle. So I go back to where I began. I call in the energies of quartz for magnification and intensification, and back to center. I wanted to use both of your tools tonight so that they would be used in ceremony. Okay, so with that, we have activated our grid. Now, here's what I want to tell you. And you can start anywhere you want. You can start in the east, you can start in the north. The most important thing is you got to seal the circle. Wherever you start, you have to finish there, because you are, so this is what I'm going to explain to you. I'm going to show you, I'm going to put the camera back so you can see, but I'm going to explain to you what I'm trying to show you. There is a webbing that happens when we activate a grid. Okay, what I just did may have looked like I was going through the motions, okay? As long as you're within 12 inches, you are in the field of those stones. So you don't have to touch them directly, you can. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I just follow my intuition. If you want to touch each one directly, you can totally do that. But because of what I'm about to tell you, I don't feel like I need to. As you're going through and doing this, okay, that's what you saw me do, right? Right? Isn't that the motion that I just did? If we were all on plant medicine right now, you would see a web. I'm not kidding. It's a web. And the reason why it's so important to close that last point is because you seal the web. And after you're done, because I've done this on plant medicine, you ready? After you're done, the whole web vibrates. Okay, as soon as you seal it, it starts to vibrate. It takes on, it's the most magical thing you've ever seen, and I wish I could show it to you, and it's insane. Once you seal it with this final push out, the whole thing, and it's sacred geometry. It's boom, 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 boom. It's literally a web. And you can pull the energy. You can actually pull it, and it like springs back. It is the most bizarre thing, but it's the most beautiful thing. So this is why when I teach you gridding, there's reasons why. You have to deactivate this, because if you don't, if you just start taking stones off of that, you're moving things that are connected energetically. It is so disruptive. The moving stops, the vibration stops if you move any of those stones, okay? And so the vibration that it's holding at that frequency gets disrupted. And that's why, and it's even more powerful if you're webbing it at a new moon, because you've got all this cosmic energy behind it too, right? Yeah, so it's psychedelic medicine that will show you this visually. So ayahuasca is my plant medicine of choice. I don't like mushrooms, but some people do. You can see it with mushrooms if you do it with mushrooms, yeah. Pretty cool, right? Some people can work with more tame plants like cannabis and see it. It's visual for people with cannabis, some people. It is a little bit for me, but not as much as it is with ayahuasca. Okay, and we are activating at 5:55, by the way. Isn't that cool? So you saw me web it. And so now you know why we go out and then in, and then out and then in, and then out and then in, and then out and then out and then in, and then out and then in, right? Because you're webbing, you're creating, and then as soon as you seal it, it starts going like this, okay? May all who are alive today experience blessings of abundance, prosperity, and wealth from this grid. May it come to them from sources seen and unseen in a way that creates greater flow and ease. That's my intention for this grid at this sacred holy hour in the month of May. And together we say, Amen, Aho, And so it is. Isn't that cool? You made a little web tonight. Yeah, Lori, you might be able to just see it without needing anything. I need a little bump to see it. I need a little bump to see it. Not fun? So if you're gluing your grid, you can still deactivate it. And the web disappears. As soon as you release that, those crystals are not connected to each other anymore for that intention. So don't deactivate until you're done, okay? Now I'm going to show you what deactivation looks like. I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to show you, okay? We started at the center piece, right? And then we went out, and some of you I went north, you may have gone east, however you choose to do it. The reality is we have 5 points here, so we really are working with 5 directions, okay? When you deactivate, you go out to the same point. But instead of coming back and going clockwise, you come back and go counterclockwise, okay? And through. And it's exactly the same process, but you are releasing the net. You're releasing the web. And visually, if you could see it, it's like this until you make the first gesture counterclockwise. And it goes from this to, it's almost like the energy knows that it's being released. That may sound weird, but that's been my experience. I think the energy knows it's being released, for what it's worth. No, if you lift the stones to, here's the thing. So this is really important. You can lift the stones to glue them now, after it's activated. You can lift the stones to clean them now, after it's activated. But the only way you're going to do that without disrupting the web, okay, is one at a time, and you need to glue them in the order that you activated. Does that make sense? So you would glue this down first, and then you would glue this down, 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 and then you would glue this down. Or if you wanted to clean it, say it's super dusty. I don't like to clean my grids, but some people really like to do it. You would clean this, and then you would clean that, and then you would clean this, and not move them much. Now, here's the thing. You got 12 inches to work with. So as long as you are picking it up and not moving it more than 12 inches off the grid, you are not disrupting the web, okay? But don't do anything to this grid that isn't in the order of activation. Otherwise, you're gonna mess up the web. Yeah. I'm really glad you asked that question, because cleaning and gluing are important. I love to glue my grids down. And I glued this one after I activated it. But I glued each crystal down clockwise in the exact same order in which I had laid the crystals down and activated it. You can move it after it's activated, but don't disrupt the stones, okay? The stones, the web of the stones has nothing to do with its location. The web of the stones is between the stones. Does that make sense? So I can pick this up, move it downstairs. I can pick this up, move it outside. I can pick this up, glue it, and ship it to someone. And it's vibrating, okay? As soon as I move a crystal off that grid outside of 12 inches, it will stop. It automatically senses that the web has been broken. If you want to add crystals to it, there's different schools of thought on this. What I do is I add and reactivate, add and reactivate. But when I add crystals, I'm not upgrading. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying, oh, I don't like you, yellow apatite, so now I'm going to take you off and put somebody else there. But I might add stones here, you know, in these other pockets. And then all I will do is reactivate. And now I've got a new, and let me tell you something. When you do that, the sacred geometry of the web changes. That's the other really cool thing. Every time you add a different stone to this grid, it makes a different geometry. It's subtle, but the pattern completely shifts because now the crystals are vibrating with different energies, and it compensates to address it. So after you reactivate it, if you could see the original web, the web will be different. That's pretty cool. Yeah, you have total wiggle room up to 12 inches without messing this thing up, but only add clockwise, only glue clockwise, only clean clockwise. Yeah. Yeah, I don't do the third eye thing anymore because I don't feel like I need to, but I think it's not a bad idea, right? And you can as you're working with your tools, you can bring it up to the third eye in between each touch, right? But all that's doing is webbing it to you, and it doesn't need to be webbed to you. Now, here's the way. I'm going to take just a couple more minutes. I know we're a little bit over time. Hopefully you're okay with that. I want to take 1 more minute to grid our grids to each other. Okay? If you want to do this. I think it's kind of a fun extra bonus activity, and I would love for my grid to be gridded to your grid. So here's how we do that. So you come back to the center piece, and there's different ways to do this too. But the most important thing when you're connecting grid to grid is your intention, okay? So what I like to do, my bell, is call in the energies of the grids from each direction, okay? So first I'm going to connect this grid to the other prosperity grids that have been activated tonight. I'm connecting this grid to all of those grids that reside in the north. And you want to use a double terminated wand for this because, again, these can send and receive energy. And back to center. I'm connecting this grid to all other grids that reside in the east. And back to center. I'm connecting this grid to all other prosperity grids that reside in the south. And back to center. And I'm connecting this grid to all other activated prosperity grids that reside in the west. And back to center. You can feel that, like the energy. And so I guarantee you the web just changed again. Okay, I can't see it, but it just changed again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the circle and ring the bell so that anybody who wants to go, because I know we're at 6 o'clock and that's technically the end of class, can go. I'm going to stay with you for another 10 or 15 minutes just to see if you have additional questions, because you probably do. And so anybody who wants to stay, you're more than welcome to do that. But I don't want people to feel like they have to stay if they don't want to stay. If you've gotten your money's worth tonight and you're good, and you got to go cook dinner for littles or something, feed your fur babies, I understand that too. So and do you feel the energy? Like I get such a buzz when I grid. That's the other party bonus of gridding. Do you feel the energy? It's like it courses through your hands and your fingers, and I've been a little bit tired today because it was such a busy weekend for me, and I still feel like I've had some tea. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of like almost like a caffeine boost that you get from gridding. Or 9 o'clock, there's that too. So let's release the guides and the guardians. Let's release first. We always pick up where we left off. So we're releasing the guides and guardians of the north, releasing the guides and guardians of the west, releasing the guides and the guardians of the south, and releasing the guides and the guardians of the east. Releasing all ancestors, light beings, spirit guides, releasing higher selves, every energy and spirit that was here to support us in this work. I'm releasing your grid, right? All of the energy that, residual energy in the room. And with that, it's buzzy, right? Yeah, you can connect your grid to anything, The only thing is make sure you have permission to connect. Like I wouldn't connect this grid to every grid on the planet. I don't have permission to do that. Not everybody who's got a grid wants me plugging into theirs, right? But I think you can connect it to Gaia. Obviously here in our community, I set the intention that would connect to any of your grids that was open to being shared. And you're welcome to connect to mine, you know what I mean? So you can do the same thing with mine. Because in my experience, that only enhances the energy. It only makes it bigger. It doesn't detract or take away. That's a very weird kind of, I don't know, what would you call it? A limiting belief that there's only so much energy in the world. So if you take my grid energy that I don't have enough or whatever, the universe is abundant. So I love connecting to your grid, and I hope you love connecting to my grid, because I think we create this. It's not 2 + 2 = 4. It's 2 + 2 = 10. You know what I mean? So like that's where the vibration, my energy level, as soon as I plugged into your grids, got bigger, right? Like I felt a little more animated than I did before we did that. And so I want you to learn from these. This is energy work we did tonight, right? And to start to teach you that the more you connect energetically, it's the antidote to sadness. It's the antidote to exhaustion, right? We actually need to plug into energy, to each other, to the planet, to the crystals. That's where we get our kind of super juice vibration, right? So, yeah, so with that, class is complete. May Crystal Masters is in the books, and I hope you enjoyed it. I had so much fun. I tried to pack everything in without making it seem jam-packed, so I hope I did a good job. I also tried to make it super comprehensive, you know what I mean? So hopefully there was enough information here. Even if you've been with me for a long time, I did teach some things tonight I've never taught before, so hopefully there was something new for everybody. I do connect grids through my home. Yeah, this grid, I will connect tonight to my outdoor Lakshmi grid. I connect my protection grid to all of the grids, so it becomes like a observer grid, so it protects all the grids. It's pretty neat stuff. Yeah. So, and then before everybody goes, and then I'll stay and answer questions, if you shop at sagegoddess.com before midnight tomorrow, your name will go on a list, and one of you is going to win. This is a $900 wand made of crystals from my collection. Some of them are from him. The rose quartz is from him. The citrine and yellow sapphire is from me. The yellow apatite and the Ethiopian opals is from me. More citrine and yellow sapphire from me, and then the rose quartz is from him. So this is the transformation and manifestation of love and prosperity wand. And then if you're not shopping, that's cool too. I'm going to post a picture of this in our Facebook group. This is a double terminated wandlet that you can also use to activate grids. And it's got a blue tourmaline little trillion cut in there in sterling silver. This is a necklace, right? You can put your chain through the bail. And so it becomes a portable wand that you can use to activate grids, to send and receive energy as a healer. And that's worth $3.99. So you can't go wrong, and you can enter both if you want. Your code is ClassTools20 for 20% off our whole Class Tools section until midnight tomorrow. And that's just for Crystal Masters members. So enjoy. I had so much fun planning little surprises for you for tonight, and was just looking forward to it the whole month. So I hope you had a lot of fun tonight. I hope you did. Okay, now I'm here just for you and your questions. So let me see who's got questions. I absolutely will. So yeah, Madonna, I'm going to put the, what do you think, Alexis? Should I put pictures of both into the Facebook group? Because there may be people who aren't here tonight who still will want to shop and enter. So I think I'll put these both up in our Facebook group, and that's where you can enter. But if you shop, you're automatically entered because your name will be in the system, and that's where I'm going to be looking. And that's for purchases from today until midnight tomorrow. Yeah. You're so welcome. I'm glad you had a good time. We used to have the bells on the site. I don't know if we do anymore. I think they might all be gone, unfortunately. It's just a brass bell though, so if we don't have them, you can always look on eBay or Etsy or, you know, and search brass bells. You might be able to find one that you like that's similar. I'm so glad. Linda said my voice makes her relax into meditation mode and zone out. Well, I really appreciate that. My Mercury's in Cancer, so I have a little bit of like a sing-songy voice. My students, you know, when I was a university professor, used to complain that I would put them to sleep. They would be like, don't read to us, you're gonna put us to sleep. I don't know what it is, but anyway, I'm so glad you enjoyed the class. Okay, Angel, Rainbow, Monkey, Cat. If you had a grid up for years and you took it apart, did you lose built up energy when you remake it? It's from scratch, new now. Is that worse than what you have? I think you do, when you take your grid apart, you do disrupt the web, right? But you can rebuild the web. It's not going to be exactly the same web. It shifts, right? Because you're different. Something's different, right? Something's always different. The time that you set it up is a different time than now. But that is not a bad thing. And if you feel called to take a grid down, remember to do that at the new moon. There might be a reason. It might be, I had a grid that I set up when I first got diagnosed with MS almost 11 years ago now, which is so nuts. Time goes by. But I had a healing grid that I set up, and I didn't want to keep it. I didn't want to have a healing grid from that vibration, right, of losing my vision and all those scary things. So I deactivated that grid and have since set up many other healing grids. But my own vibration was not strong when I set that up. My vibration now is much stronger and healthier. So does that make sense? Sometimes we feel called to take things down and we don't know why. And in the fullness of time, it's like, oh, it's because my vibration shifted. Or now I'm in a healthier place, or now I'm in a happier place, or whatever it is. So my vibration is higher. So I feel like the healing work I can do now is a little bit stronger. Yay! Julie Baxter said, I've been thinking of a grid to increase intuition. What crystals would you recommend? So you're going to want to work with third eye stones, right? So the third eye stones, like on this grid, are labradorite and sodalite. I also love me some sapphire for third eye. We have tumbled merlinite right now at Sage Goddess, which we don't always have, which I love for third eye. Other favorite, azurite. Gotta have azurite in a third eye grid. I love, what else would I say for third eye? Blue kyanite's nice to have in a third eye grid. Like the dark blue kyanite, really deep blue. Those would be my go-tos. Sodalite, sapphire, azurite, merlinite. Sometimes you can find blue sugilite, the richterite. That's a cool rare one to add to a third eye grid. I like that too. Blue tourmaline is cool if you can find it. So hopefully that's helpful. Where on Bagua map would go a general new moon true life goals manifestation grid? So this is a great corner for manifestation, this northwest, because it's unseen assistance. It's people coming to help you out of nowhere, okay? So this might be a good one to put a new moon grid. I also like the northeast corner for wisdom, right? So that's a nice one to put there too. The general rule is if you have kind of an all-purpose grid that you want to set up, the middle of the room or the middle of the house is a nice place to put it because it's a unifying force. It's the heart of the energy flow in the home. So wherever that is would be good for you too. That was a great question too. Your questions are great because you're probably not the only one with the question. Can you also include the planetary hour that supports your grid's intention if a person works with planetary hours? 1000%. And I think that's very smart. So yeah, your birth time, any kind of, every time you add kind of a layer of something interesting to this, whether it's around astrology or whatever it is, right? It's called a correspondence. And with every additional correspondence, like we activated this right around 5:55 today in May. That's 5555 in a 5-year, 2021. And it's a pentagonal grid, another 5. So every one of those, there's 5 stones, right? Every one of those is like a layer of energy. It's a correspondence, and it increases the frequency of the grid. So this grid's web, if you will, is going to be a little bit stronger because of all those layers of correspondence than it would be if we activated this at 12 noon in June, with 4 stones instead of 5. Because those other things are adding to the manifestation energy. Tralite for third eye too, Maruda, thank you for that. Let's see. If we add stones to an existing grid to inactivate, do we have to deactivate it the 2 ways we activated the grid? I'm not sure I'm following. If you add stones, you activate it exactly the way we did the first time. So clockwise, going out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in. And you want to reactivate everything because you're making a new web, remember? So you don't just want to add stones and walk away because your grid's like, what do I do with these? So you're kind of teaching the grid, oh, there's new people here, there's new friends at the party, and these are part of our party. So it's like introducing the new stones to the grid, and then when you reactivate it, you unify all of those energies and you bring them together in a new. God, you guys are so good. Osvy's like, Iolite, of course. Sometimes it takes me a minute. Can we just say the crystal name while gridding, or do we have to list the properties too each time? I don't know. I've always said the properties. So try it without. I mean, it'll be a lot faster if you don't do what I did. You know what I mean? If you just say quartz, quartz, peridot, quartz, hessonite, quartz. Like, it'll definitely be a faster process. What you might want to do is do the extended remix the first time, and then when you add stones and reactivate, maybe you do the radio version. Breast crystals for a Reiki grid, I would say use your intuition. Reiki is such a universal frequency to me that for me, Reiki aligns with every crystal in the mineral kingdom. But that's just my personal experience of Reiki. I see Reiki as one of the most potent, unifying, universal life force energies that we have access to. I'm a big believer in the healing force of Reiki, but for me, it's so connected to the entire mineral kingdom that I almost think following your intuition, or if you're doing a Reiki grid for someone in particular and you're working with Reiki energy for a particular intention, you may want to use that to guide your choices too. Can selenite be used as a base for a grid? Sure, I love it. I gave Alexis, a Synergy 12 grid, and I put hers on a selenite base. I sure did. And the nice thing about a selenite base is that it's almost like doing a shungite base for a grid. Selenite is a constant clearing stone, right? So she doesn't have to worry about clearing her stones, which is really nice. It's a natural purifier of the energy. If we made a mistake while activating, do we have to deactivate the grid, or can we just fix and keep going? Fix and keep going. I mean, it depends on what you did. If you forgot a stone, I would go back and just do it again if you overlooked a stone. Because you want everything to be in the web. And the web's only going to be geometric if it's even. That's why it's important to have the same number of crystals. You know what I mean? If you have a 5-pointed grid, having 5 stones, 5 points, like making it balanced is really important, because that's going to make for a balanced web of energy. If my citrine point doesn't stand straight, can I use another citrine to help prop it up? Yeah, or just a little tiny piece of the museum putty. I do keep museum putty in my crystal room, and I keep a little jar of Play-Doh. Because Play-Doh's great. You know, like kids' Play-Doh. Play-Doh's great for propping up stones. And it dries, but museum putty's a little more secure. If you're working with things that are fragile and you know, expensive, probably museum putty is better. Reiki quartz, generator quartz points, and platonic solids and healer's gold. That's a grid and a half, Colin. It's like, my work here is done. It is really cool to put the, by the way, this is the other grid that we have. This is the earth grid that we have at Sage Goddess. That's the only other one we have in stock. So these are the 2 that we have. These are in your class tools section. You would think I would have a lot more, but when we bring grids, they usually sell out, so I don't have that many of them. But I do love adding the platonic solids to a grid for the elemental balance. But you don't need them if your stones represent an elemental balance. There's a nice balance here if you think about it. There's fire with the hessonite garnet. There's earth, I would say, with the aventurine. There's no water in that grid. So maybe you would want to bring in something to represent the water element, which is for flow. But if you put that in the southeast corner, that's the water element corner. So you're already bringing in the water element if you follow feng shui. And that's why I teach you about these different modalities, because something covers all the elements, right? Whether it's where you put it or what you put on it, you end up with a good balance one way or the other. Do you use special grid shapes for specific intentions? Yeah, like this one, this grid is the Metatron's cube, right? And so, but what I like about this grid is you have the triangles because it's Metatron's cube, you have the triangles, so you can do like a threesome of stones this way, and then you could do a threesome. I'm trying to draw and talk at the same time, of stones that way, and then you have room for 6 quartz points if you wanted to do it that way. Each grid kind of guides you, right? This is a totally different grid. So this one, I love gridding with Flower of Life. I chose it for this grid because you can put stones at each one of the centers of the flowers, right? And so that makes a really nice, it's really beautiful. And I love to see chip stones on a Flower of Life grid because they're small, and there's something really elegant about that too. Can you use all citrine for a prosperity grid, or is it better to mix? It would be better to use all citrine if you can do that. If you've got it, flaunt it. The more citrine, the better. So it's real with citrine, the energy of it for prosperity. It's real. Just like Hessonite garnet for me is very real. My favorite stones for manifestation are rhodozite, yellow apatite, and arvedzonite. And you've got all my favorite prosperity stones there on the altar today. Can you use a natural quartz piece in the middle that has a baby point growing off of it? Sure. It's nicer to have a generator with a flat bottom, a properly flat bottom, because that is surface area to gather energy. That's why I like to have a flat bottom. But if you have a point that you're really attached to, museum putty and stick it in there and see how you do. See how you go. You betcha. Lemurian blue calcite platonic solids. I want that. Does somebody have that? Where can I buy that? I don't know. Yeah, you know what? Color blue can represent water. And, there is some blue in the grid. Bonnie makes a great point. So you can also think about color magic, right? Because each one of the colors have specific energy that they align to as well. So I like your thinking there. That makes a lot of sense. Let's see. Can a flame lay on its side to direct energy in a grid? I would say give it a try. Sometimes you guys ask me things, it's like I haven't done it before, so I can't really say yes or no, but part of me is like, I like your thinking. And then what I ask is, if you do it, tell me about it, because I oftentimes, a lot of times I learn from you guys when you say, oh, I tried this and it worked really well, or I did this other thing and it didn't work, and sometimes it's things that I haven't done before, and I get a kick out of that too. What's the best shape for bringing in your true love grid? Love grids, oh, and I forgot to mention this too. I'm so glad you're asking this because it kind of jogged my mind. I know I'm going a little bit longer than I said I was going to, but I'm having fun, so you can leave whenever you want. I don't have anything else to do. The kids ate dinner early, so I'm here for you. You can also put flowers on a grid, and it's flipping beautiful. And you can let them dry on the grid, and it's so pretty. Zoe's a big fan of adding flowers to grids, like a flower mandala kind of. You can put lavender flowers or rose petals, and if the space is dry enough, they'll dry on the grid, and it's absolutely beautiful. You can glue dried flowers to your grid. Flowers and leaves and organic things have life force energy, right? Even when they're dried. So I love the idea of working with all of that too. Can you have too many stones in a grid? I have seen some kind of shit show grids before. I mean, not to be judgy about it, but where it's like there's just like 100 different stones on the grid, and it's almost like the energy can become too crazy, where it doesn't feel organized. Let's put it that way. But here's my rule with it, okay? As long as you do things in pairs, or as long as you do things in 4s or in 8s, you know what I mean? Or in the case of this one, in 5s and 10s, where there's some synergy, I don't think you can go wrong. I think what happens is people just go, well, I'm going to add 1 piece of this and 2 pieces of that and 3 pieces of this and 4 pieces of that. And it's like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. And it ends up looking kind of haphazard. So that would be my only guidance to you, is like, don't do that. It can be busy. Extractor diamonds can be used to activate grids. Extractor needles are single terminated. Extractor diamonds are double terminated. Do you guys know what we're talking about? Yeah, they're different kinds of tools. They're kind of like little mini Vogels, but they're very sharp on the ends. And the reason they're sharp is when you do body work with them, they activate the chi lines or the ki lines or the prana lines, right? The energy lines in the body, and they help to move energy. They function kind of like acupuncture needles in a way. Same technology, okay? But you're not inserting the needle into the skin. Because in my training, you don't really need to do that. You need to stimulate the energy, but you can do that without piercing the skin, at least according to most energy workers I know. So it's kind of like crystal acupuncture, and those function very well as wands in a way too. Janisa, I'm kind of jumping through questions, but I hope that's helpful for you. What's a good place to look up other grids to make? Oh my God, you'll get so inspired. Just Google it or go on YouTube, or if you start Googling crystal grids, and you'll see some examples of great ones and not great ones. Go on Instagram, hashtag crystal grid. I mean, for days, right? And I love to do that for inspiration. And that's where you start to see people doing really cool things with flowers, or like I was saying, or there's an amazing man. Oh, I wish I had my cell phone to look him up. Dan, can you guys look him up? Dan Schaub, I think, Schaub. God, is it Dan Schaub? If somebody can look it up and just tell me if I'm like totally missed the mark. Dan Schaub, if that's the right person, on Instagram. If you want to see the person I think in this world who's made the most insane grids I've ever seen, I own two. I own a big one and a small one. They're from my office, and I haven't moved into my office yet, so I'm saving them. Dan Schaub is, for me, the grid master. If you want to see what I think is now he is really into, he's a visionary. I'm sure he must work with plant medicine. I mean, it's just, if you look at his designs, it's like super sacred geometry. I'm pretty sure it's Dan Schaub on Instagram. Those are goals for grids, yeah. Let's see, Dan Schaub Designs. Thank you, Lena. You're gonna lose your mind. Just go to his Instagram for eye candy. If for nothing else, yeah, it's Dan Schaub Designs. He is holy magic. Holy magic. Pinterest is great too, like Jess Wilson says. I don't use it as much as I used to because I'm just too busy now that there's TikTok and everything else. It's like, I'm getting older. I can't keep up with the young kids anymore, but Pinterest is great too. Can you program or use a Synergy 12 grid for love? Synergy 12 is for manifestation, and you can manifest anything with it. Synergy 12 is a fast track, right? This is a fast forward button. I'm trying to manifest. Fast forward. This is literally just that's what it is. It speeds up the process. Because a lot of the stones in the Synergy 12, like Natrolite, Zezchelite, Satyaloka, which comes from a sanctuary monastery, they're just severely high vibrational crystals. So they're just like a fast track. Same with rhodozite, though, which is not in the Synergy 12. It should be, but it's not, yeah. Jennifer said, I think I missed this, but is it okay to place a grid in the actual southeast corner of my room instead of using the Bhagwan map? Yes. You have options. You can either do it by the compass, or you can do it by the map, yeah. Let's see. Oh, I want to see that. Jessica says she knows a beautiful flower grid Instagram page. She'll post it in the group. I can't wait to see that. Because a lot of us love flowers, and I have a big garden. I grow a lot of flowers. That's the way I stay sane with my job, which is very stressful and very demanding and never shuts off, is I garden. And so I spend a lot of time out there. And if you're as passionate about it as I am, then it's a beautiful way to bring something living and organic and, into your work. Is Merkaba a good choice for a center stone? You know what, Deborah? I like it. What do you think, Deborah? I'm glad you mentioned it. I mean, Merkaba is a really powerful, Merkaba means light, body, spirit, and in ancient times, it's how we moved between dimensions, right? We used to be able to conjure a Merkaba at will and move between the different dimensions of reality. And I still believe that Merkaba is how we come into the planet, and it's how we leave the planet when we die. So I think they're little chambers of light that move us between dimensions of reality. So why wouldn't they be a great centerpiece for a grid? I will tell you, I haven't done it, but it's not because I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's just because I've never done it. So I would say do it and report back. I would love to know. Yeah, Casey says, I have manifestation altar in my room. It's located on the west wall, but I keep the prosperity grid on the southeast corner of the altar. Is that okay? That's perfect. I mean, I wouldn't change a thing. And Meredith says she has used a Merkaba for the center of a grid, and it's been great for her, so I think I love it. Oh, you want Matrilineal? Did you guys like that? The little perfume that Zoe and I made for Mother's Day? I've been wearing mine as perfume. I've been wearing it with my patchouli, and it smells really good. Part of me is like, maybe that should be a thing. Yeah, we should write each other's Merkabas. I love that. I think it's really great. It does spin. It's like a magical top. Totally. Let's see. Jessica Wagner. Did you have a question? I'm looking for your question and I can't see it. Christine Rogers, can you tell me how to use my Arvedzonite sphere just purchased in the live gem show? Thank you, love you. Oh, you're so sweet. So with Arvedzonite, I hold it in meditation and when I'm setting intentions at the new moon. I also like to keep an Arvedzonite sphere in my space. I have one right in here in my crystal closet right there. Because it emits that frequency. Think of Arvedzonite, the way I think of it is like energetic molasses. It's sticky, it attracts to it. And it's almost like it's constantly picking up all the vibrations and messages in the room. It's pure magic to me, Arvedzonite, and always has been. So holding that in meditation or holding it while you write your intentions is a good thing to do. No way, Dan has a Facebook page. I didn't know that. I've only ever found him on, and I didn't know he had an Etsy. I bought my grids from his direct website. Could we use a wood natural base to weatherproof? Oh, there's Jessica. To weatherproof it for outdoor use. 1000%. Most grids that you're going to purchase commercially have been sealed. So I wouldn't worry energetically about sealing your wood. I think it's a great question, but I wouldn't worry about it. And also, can you put sigils, symbols, glyphs, prayers on the underside of the base? God, it's a beautiful idea. I just love that so much, Jessica. Makes me want to... It's a little too late now. But it inspires me to think about doing that. My aunt who died, she was very young. It's a very sad story, actually. She died in 1980, so she's been gone for a long time. But the thing that she left that my mom, and they were very close, that my mom prizes the most is that she wrote the lyrics to a Neil Diamond song. I can't remember which Neil Diamond song, but she wrote it was actually the lyrics to a Bette Midler song. I can't remember which Bette Midler song. But anyway, she wrote the lyrics, I think, in a circle, if I'm not mistaken, under the table. And so it was one of the only pieces of her handwriting that they had, and it was, everybody wanted that table after she was gone. It's a very beautiful thing to do. Do you need to use the same wand to deactivate? Nope. Yeah, didn't he blow your mind, Shauna? I'm telling you. I mean, I don't mention a lot of people when I'm live because I don't get any benefit from telling you about Dan Schaub. Dan doesn't know I'm mentioning him to you kind of thing. But sincerely, he inspires me. I think his work is really it was the rose. Yeah, it was the rose. I can't listen to that song without crying because it was her song. And it's a sad story. So that song still makes all of us cry. I know. I love Bette Midler. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's like maybe I need to go play some Bette Midler tonight. What are my thoughts about putting a copper pyramid over your grid? I love it. I want to do it. I hope you do it and post a picture. Donna said she sprayed Bordello around her grid. It's truly her ancestor perfume. Isn't that cool? It reminds her of her grandfather's cherry tobacco pipe. That's really awesome. Isn't it amazing? Because your olfactory system is connected to your limbic system in your brain, and that's your mammalian brain, right? That's your old brain. Before we got smart and got a, frontal lobe and started having, rational thoughts, that's your old brain. And so the sense of smell is so primal because it takes us into that innermost part of our ancient mammalian brain that doesn't even understand language, but it knows love. It knows comfort, it knows safety. And so when we smell these smells, that's why I love perfuming, because it takes us in. Starting in July, I have a brand new class that's launching called Perfume Around the World, and you'll start hearing about that in the next week, where I'm going to be teaching you. I'm doing 3 countries. It's going to be July, August, September, And we're doing one country a month. We're doing Indonesia, Egypt, and oh gosh, what's the third country we decided to do? It's slipping my mind right now. But that's because it's just my love for, you know, the geography and the history of the plants and the flowers and their medicinal uses too. Let's see. Aw, thank you for that. I really appreciate you, Phoenix Rising. You made my day. I know, isn't it a sad song? It's a beautiful song, actually. Yeah, and for Kaz, it's Creedence Clearwater Revival. All of those, you know, it's like all the music of the 70s for me is now connected to somebody I've lost. So it's kind of hard as we get older, you know what I mean? Let's see. Did you really again, Cito Lover? I love that. That's really sweet. Is there an energetic difference with a spiral grid? Allison, I'm going to tell you there is. That's the Fibonacci sequence, which is a mathematical sequence aligned to manifestation. I'm going to be teaching you all about Fibonacci in September because it's what we're doing for the fall equinox at Sage Goddess. We've already designed all of our fall equinox art and everything, and we're focusing on the Fib sequence because I'll be teaching you how to work with it for manifestation. But that's that nautilus, that sacred spiral, and I do because I think when you have the Fibonacci sequence, you have this core kind of kernel and it winds out from there. So the energy starts as like a tight intention and it ends up winding out into this manifestation. It's interesting, but I do think there's a difference, and it's a good difference, is what I would say. And you can totally use a Vogel, Christina G. You sure can. Soul Shift, I think for Soul Shift, the new class, I can't remember. There's definitely a discount for Soul Shift with the new class. I don't know if it's free for Soul Shift or just deeply discounted. You guys definitely get some kind of break on it for sure. And then if everybody likes it, I'm thinking about weaving Perfume Around the World into next year's programs, which could be really exciting, along with Crystal Masters. So yeah. All right, you guys. Well, I want to thank you for being here tonight. I hope you had a really good time. I hope you learned a lot, even if you're experienced, and a lot of you are. I hope there was still something tonight that captured and held your attention. I'm going to go over to the Facebook group right now, and I'm going to post pictures of the wands. So if you want to enter the giveaway or the enter to win, both of those will be there for you, and you'll have until midnight tomorrow, Tuesday, to enter those, and then Alexis and I will come in and announce the winners on Wednesday, and I'm so excited to see. So that's for the Transformation Love and Wealth wand and for the blue tourmaline little wandlet. So good luck, everybody. Super grateful for you. And then stay tuned. Don't get tired of me yet. I'm teaching tomorrow. I'm teaching the free divination class on YouTube tomorrow afternoon. And then Wednesday it's Soul Shift again. Live readings at 2 on Wednesday. And then we have session 3 at 4 p.m. And then you'll get a break from me for a little while, for a couple days. All right, you guys. Mwah. Mahalo to you, Bonnie. It's always so great to have you here. Really appreciate you guys. Michelle, this is, are you ready, girl? Good question. This is exactly a 2 carat. It's like 2.2 or 2.3 carat Hessonite. Because that's what you need for wealth and abundance. Yeah, baby. I gave you exactly what you needed. In fact, I wouldn't judge you if you took that and decided to set that into a ring instead of using it in your grid, because that would make an amazing prosperity ring. You got to decide what you want to do. All right. Mwah. Thanks, you guys. Thank you, Alexis, as always, especially for staying late and getting all those worksheets into the classroom. I was just like, how did she even do that? She's wicked fast. I appreciate you so much. All right. I'm going to head over to the